Hi, good evening. Welcome, everyone. Prior to this evening's board meeting, we did have an executive session. It began at 5:15, and it was to consider the minimum price at which real estate will be offered for sale or lease. The session ended at 5:55 p.m., and no official action was taken. So now I call the Tuesday, August 19th, 2025 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. All board directors are present. And please note that this is a regular scheduled meeting held to conduct district business. It is open to the public and is being live streamed and recorded. Will you now please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Before we get started this evening, I'm going to hand off the mic to Superintendent Barr. She has a statement about some recent events in the community that she'd like to share.
Thank you, Board President Wimberly and Board. We would like to provide more information regarding recent concerns shared about Lifewise Academy. Recently, we have been fielding quite a few questions and wanted to do this up front. Lifewise is not a Peninsula School District or PSD school board initiated program, and it is not affiliated with or endorsed by our district in any way. Lifewise is a private religious instruction program held off of school property, is our understanding, with parental permission and without the use of public funds. We do recognize individuals' rights to exercise their constitutional freedom of religion outside of our schools. As such, families may choose to sign their children out of school to attend such programs at their discretion, just as they would for any other off-site appointment, such as dental, medical, or such. Board Policy 2340, religious-related activities and practices, states that a student, upon the request of a parent, may be excused to participate in religious instruction for a portion of a school day, provided the activity is not conducted on school property. Credit shall not be granted for such instruction. We join you in caring deeply about your students' learning environment, and our district continues to encourage regular attendance. We recommend that students attend school all day, every day, to maximize their learning opportunities. Thank you for the ability to be able to have that conversation. Brent, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. Okay, moving on with the agenda. Item 3 is the approval of our agenda this evening. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by David to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried and the agenda is approved. Item 4 this evening, we will have recognition and reports. I'm going to call Becky Maffei, our lead counselor, to recognize the Gig Harbor and Key Peninsula Suicide Prevention Coalition.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the board and Superintendent Barr for making some space in your agenda tonight for a really important recognition of a group that we have received partnership and benefit from for many, many years. The Gig Harbor Key Peninsula Suicide Prevention Coalition was formed in 2012 out of a coalition of some school district folks, lots of community people from a broad range of the community, from nonprofit sector, from business leaders, from government people in every aspect of the community, really coming together with the goal of helping to make Gig Harbor and the Key Peninsula more suicide safe. And so recognizing the value of us working as a coalition really is what this coalition has sort of exemplified for now over 13 years. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to recognize them formally in front of the board. And I want to name some of the board members, are here with us this evening. I'm just going to read the list of the entire board and those who are here if you want to come up and join me. Thelma Brown is the current president, Judd Morris, Myrna Velez, Becky Armbruster, Gina Cabadoo, Kathy Waymiller, Laurel Schultz, Bob Anderson, Ann Nesbitt, Dan Gregory, Joan Nelson, Cassidy Kohler. All of these amazing people put so many hours into our community and into really coming together to create spaces for people to learn about issues around suicide, what we can do as a community to make it a safer community for everyone, how we can support each other, how we can just connect and create opportunities for people when they're struggling to find that connection that they need. And so this group over the last 13 years has headed up numerous events and art shows and educational opportunities, presentations for groups all throughout the community and in our schools. They've partnered with me specifically for a lot of training for both students and staff, have led up many student-run organizations have partnered with those student groups to kind of help support the students to create the opportunities that they feel they need to feel connected and to feel belonging. And so with that, I think, like I said, they just exemplify what we really can be as a community when we come together. And so I want to present each of them with a certificate, and I'll read what it says. This honor is proudly presented to the Gig Harbor Key Peninsula Suicide Prevention Coalition in heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering commitment and dedication to the students, staff, and families of the Peninsula School District. Your partnership has been instrumental to enhancing suicide awareness and prevention efforts and providing resources and opportunities to make our community safer and more connected. Your efforts foster hope and encouragement and have undoubtedly saved lives. Our community is better because of you. With sincere appreciation from the Peninsula School District School Board and to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. I think that's good. Oh, okay. On behalf of the Gig Harbor Key Peninsula Suicide Prevention Coalition, I'm Thelma Brown, the president, and we would like to thank the board and the community for this recognition, and we look forward to continuing to work with your students, the community, family members, and we look forward to the continuation of the training that we get through the district. Students are trained as youth mental health first aiders, and they are the eyes and ears at school. When they're in school, if they see someone that needs help, if they hear something in the hallways, because staff members can't be everywhere all the time. So that's why this is so important, that we take care of each other. So thank you so much, Peninsula School Board. Thank you, and community.
Can I first just say something? I want to say thank you to the coalition. Having worked in the emergency services and witnessed some of the things I've witnessed, I can't say enough about the value of the work that you do and how important it is, even if it saves one child. Yeah. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thelma, I just want to say thank you and to your board for opening up your lovely home every year for the annual fundraiser for your organization. It's always a pleasure to come and participate in that. And when my kids were in school, they had 4 of their friends during the time they were in high school commit suicide. So that's a deep meaning to me.
And that's why I always like to stress, we need to take care of. Say one more thing to the group, it's a positive thing. I just want everyone to know that our theme is celebrating life and successes. Oops.
Got it, okay. I know how much we all love to hear about budget reports after celebrating the wonderful things happening in our community, but Ashley, you always do such a great job, so we're going to call up our CFO, Ashley Murphy, to do our monthly budget update.
Yes, okay, so, sorry, I'm just gonna, there we go. Okay, I'm afraid it was gonna fall down any second. Okay, so this is simply our monthly budget status update. One of the things I do wanna call out is this is our monthly budget status update for the month ending June 30th. Okay, so we utilize the treasurer as, think about it like as a banking industry, school districts do in Washington State. So Pierce County Treasurer, they have to calculate all the ins and outs for all public entities that they hold funds for. And so they get their statements, like think about it like a bank statement, to us around the 12th of each month. And so ultimately, depending upon timeframes of board meetings, if I'm coming up to present and I'm presenting on an older month, it's because of the time frame of when the board meeting was versus when we got treasurer's statement and we can reconcile on our end. So this is for June 30th. So we're gonna go through that information. Can you pull it up, Brittany? It's the monthly budget status update. It looks like this. And just for, so our normal executive assistant that's up here, Jenny, is out. And so we have Brittany filling in. Do you? No? Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to speak to it. The presentation itself is linked on board docs. And so for anyone following along at home, you can bring it up there. So the first page that we're actually looking at is our general fund revenues. That pinkish semicircle is currently showing us trending at about 81% of our total revenues collected at this point. That's where we would expect to be because we have about 22.5% of our state revenues that we had not received yet as of June 30th because of apportionment payments in July and August. So for revenues, we're tracking to be where we are, where we were supposed to be as far as budget goes with that budget extension that was approved in May. For general fund expenditures, the green semicircle is our focus on this one. This shows where we're currently trending as far as a percent of ending fund balance. Right now, we're currently trending to be at approximately 6.86%. We have a board goal that sets forward a 4 to 6% ending fund balance goal. So we're trending just above that. You're going to hear during the next presentation in regards to one of the reasons why we needed a bit higher of a fund balance now in order to offset costs for next year. The next page shows our trend lines for where we have, where our ending fund balance has been for the 24-25 school year. The 24-25 school year and the 3 prior fiscal years. The solid blue line is our current line. That's where we're currently trending. One of the things that's extremely notable is if you look at that June time period, we are significantly under where we have been trending in all 3 of the prior years. So this is tied to all of the conversations that we've been having during budget status update meetings or during monthly budget presentations in regards to enrollment that's trending down and state revenues and federal revenues that aren't keeping pace with that, and sort of the inequities within the prototypical funding formula. So for end of June, we were trending at 5.9 million as far as an ending fund balance. In years prior, it was almost double that. That green triangle is where we aim to be at the end of the year. And so we will be there, which is positive because that puts us in a good place for the start of the 25-26 school year. And then the next page that I've included is a general fund high-level financial forecast for a bunch of different both revenue areas and expenditure areas. One of the areas that individuals will likely key on is under the purchase service area, where it's currently showing that we're trending $3.2 million in the red. Purchase services, that tends to be our contracted support staff for special education. And so if we are not able to post and hire someone within as a W-2 employee, we need to contract out with a staffing agency. Unfortunately, the costs associated with that are significantly higher, but ultimately we have to provide services to students. And so if we can't get the staff to work directly for us, we need to go through contracting agencies. A lot of the times why we see this with our contracted staff, so OTs, PTs, it could be SLPs, school psychs, nurses, LPNs, they can tend to make more in private industry than they can working for a school district. School districts can't differentiate base salary pay for specific staff. All certificated staff are treated equally, and then some will receive, let's say, some extra days to do preparation of materials. So ultimately, they make more money on the outside. So it is harder to attract and retain those staff. Hence the reason you see larger purchase service costs yearly in regards to budget. Okay, so that's our budget status update for June. Do you guys have any questions?
Nope. Okay,
so I'm gonna just step back and then you can call us back up.
Let me read my spiel.
Okay.
Item 5 on our agenda this evening, this is actually not a laughing matter. This is our 25-26 budget. This is related to all funds, and this is a public hearing. So I now call this public hearing to order. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to present and discuss a proposed preliminary 2025-2026 budget for the Peninsula School District. This is an important matter as budget decisions impact our students, schools, staff, and the greater community. The Board of Directors welcomes public input as a part of this process. So our Chief Financial Officer, Ashley Murphy, will share a presentation about the budget on all funds, and then I will call for a public comment related to the budget after the presentation.
Okay, we're back again. Okay, so with me, some of you guys are going to recognize Logan. So Logan is one of our recent Gig Harbor graduates. He interned for me last year. He was so excited to come back and intern for me again this year. And so he has been heavily involved in budget preparation this year because he was able to start earlier being a senior and having graduated. And so what I'm going to have him do is I'm going to have him start walking us through our preliminary budget presentation and provide some information and context, and then I will fill in when necessary and answer any questions that anyone may have. Any questions before we get started? Okay. Do we have the little? Yes, we do. Okay. As long as it's on. Hopefully I don't just shut it off, you guys. Okay, well, Brittany, I may need you to advance it because this looks like it's dead. There we go. Oh, did it? Oh, okay. Oh, I was like, oh, it's magic. It's working. Okay. Yeah, did you put it on your computer? Is it up on your computer still right now? Go grab your computer. Okay, he's gonna go grab his computer so he can actually read what's up there. And we're gonna be starting with the general fund budget first. One of the things that I do want to state is that as we were preparing the general fund budget this year, for those that listened into my presentation in May, we had a lot of both conflicting financial priorities, and with the enrollment decreases and just overall general fund revenues that we were bringing in from the state, it wasn't necessarily enough to cover everything. So we're going to talk about some of that as we go along. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Logan, and he's going to get us started.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be here. Unfortunately, Chris could not make it. He got, he's stuck somewhere, Hawaii, on a beach, warm breeze. I don't know, something like that. Something like that.
Prepared though, so I mean priorities.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he couldn't make it, so I'm taking over. So we're going to start off with the general fund. This is basically where the district runs almost everything. It's where salaries are paid. It's where basic education, all the supply, or a lot of the supplies, all the curriculum, basically anything that has to do with day-to-day operations, this is where it's happening. So that could be classroom instruction, community use, athletics, and administration as well. So moving on to the next slide. This is our funded enrollment chart. This is what we're using to project our budget, and these are all very important numbers. So basically, you'll see three columns on the right. Those are the 24-25 budget. The kind of left one, 24-25 annual average. That's the actually realized, like how many people actually showed up for last year, and that's what I'll be going off of when comparing it year to year. And then on the far right, we have the 25-26 budget, which is what we're going off and projecting this year. So starting off at the top, we have transition to kindergarten. This is for children who are under the age that would normally go to kindergarten, and this is a great way for them to really prepare and get certain social skills and educational skills. And it is true that data shows that people who actually do take part in this program do find more success later on in their education. This is why there's been talks in recent years to expand the program. Currently, it's at 6 elementary schools, and there are talks right now to expand it further. So right now, for the prior year, we had an annual average of 96, and going into this next budget year, we are projecting 108. It is important to look at the asterisks, which is that this is not funded through your general like K-12, like your subtotals or your total K-12 enrollment. This is funded separately. So moving on to kindergarten, we are projecting to be relatively similar, 554 to 560. Grades 1 through 5, we are projecting a decrease of about 170, which is kind of in line with what we're seeing across the state and across the nation with birth rates. However, in grades 6 through 8, we did see an increase of about 30, and then in grades 9 through 12, we did see another increase of about 50 from 2,376 to 2,423. So when you look at the subtotal for K through 12, that totals to 8,305, decreasing to 8,208, and that is a pretty significant drop. So under the,
Yeah, please.
Yeah, you can
just
jump in.
Go for it. Ask questions. Yeah, so we have more information that Logan's going to be providing on that when he gets to the Running Start, Open Doors, and ALE side.
Yeah, so basically what we'll say, just kind of high level, is the subtotal thing where you see it. That's where you're getting your full students, your 100% funding. Below that, with Running Start, for instance, you only get 7%, along with Alternative Learning Experience, or ALE, you're only getting 7% for what that student would normally be worth in the state's eyes. And Open Doors is, I believe, completely unfunded.
Yeah, we're footing the bill for that. So when we're talking about, and That's one of the reasons why Logan and I even talked about that before he came up here to present, because it shows as a mixed message, right? But all of that, running stores, open doors, ALE, we are not receiving full funding for any of those students. So although the head count may be there and we're providing services, the revenue stream is not there. So when we're budgeting and having to look at the actual true revenue stream coming in through enrollment, where that's coming in is in that 8,208. For example, when we get apportionment on our Running Start students, we cut that check back to the community college. And so we'll run, $400, $500,000 bill back to the community colleges to offset the cost of them educating the students during that time period. So in order to really count truly where the funding is coming from, we try to set that aside and show that the enrollment is declining in those areas. One of the reasons you're seeing that increase is specifically due to Henderson Bay becoming an ALE high school in the 25-26 school year. And so the funding for those students is then set aside separately because of that learning environment.
Yeah.
Before you go further, because I don't want that to be misinterpreted.
Correct.
You just stated that ALE, so that 101, they are funded, however, through the state. And
Yes.
Henderson Bay, the entity is staying the same.
Correct. There's no changes.
Same place, same students.
Same
It's just
schedule.
our funding source. So can you
Correct.
talk a little bit about the benefits of doing that?
Yep, okay.
And might as well just do my second question.
Okay.
So Running Start students, those are students that go to TCC or wherever. Can you talk about college in the high school? If students stay on campus and get their college there?
Okay, so let's start with Henderson Bay. So again, like Superintendent Barr is stating, the educational experience for students at Henderson Bay, it is going to look relatively the same, but going ALE allows us more opportunities to provide services where the students need them, in the capacity that the students need them. So when we talk about a building having an alternative learning experience offered, we're talking about the fact that maybe they don't need to be in the building 6.5 hours every single day. This student has, a unique experience in which they need to work, okay? They need to work. They don't have a home to go back to, right? But they are still dedicated to finishing their high school experience. So by having that ALE environment, we can meet them where they are in their educational progress through what's called Washington State Learning Plans. And that Washington State Learning Plan is individualized to that student and what that student needs. So if that student just needs to finish 2 classes in order to graduate, we can meet them there and cater that experience to what it is they're needing. If they're struggling with passing a specific class in a face-to-face format, but they would benefit from doing it online, or before school, after school hours, all of that. Opening up that ALE environment allows us to do that. When you do not have a school in that ALE format, we have to count their instructional minutes as averaged amongst the district as a whole. And if they have less instructional minutes, it could require the other schools in that district to increase their instructional day to offset the decreased minutes in another educational building. And so ultimately, the decision to go ALE for Henderson Bay was to ensure that we can truly meet the needs of the students as they come through that door and provide them exactly what they need, and it's tailored to them. You have parent involvement. If there are parental figures or guardians that are actively involved in that student's life, you bring them in, you have the teachers meeting with them. So it's really just a more robust learning environment that's catered to that specific student.
I just want to make it very clear. Same teachers,
Absolutely.
same principal, same
building.
everything, just the ability to do different options.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, I didn't want to alarm anyone. It's going to look exactly the same, but it does give us the opportunity to cater more to what the students are needing. And then as far as Running Start goes, so not this last legislative season, but the one prior, we may recall that the state started providing funding for an offset funding for college in the classroom. And so ultimately, a student can be enrolled in high school, be attending their classes during the day, and still obtaining college credits by simply taking that college class on our own campus in the course of their 6 periods during the day. My own daughter, who just graduated from PHS last year, she graduated with 40 some odd credits for college and legitimately never had to step off campus. And so it provides another robust opportunity for students to receive that college credit experience in the high school without having to leave campus. So students that have transportation concerns or students that don't want to miss out on, let's say, like the senior experience, right? You know, the assemblies and all of that kind of stuff. Choosing college in the classroom classes still gives them the college credits, but allows them to still finish out their high school career as a high school student versus a community college student. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. This is the graph.
Yeah, so this chart is just tracking our enrollment since 2010. This is the subtotal number you saw on the previous slide, so directly your K through 12 that is being funded at 100%. If you look at the graph in the school year 19 through 20, right before COVID, we did have a peak at 8,835, but as COVID hit, schools closed down and some people chose other options. Perhaps I believe there was a Washington like online school that you could do. That number greatly decreased to around like 7,900 in 20-21. But as schools have opened up, we have seen that rise to 8,408 in 22-23, and it has since been declining year over year, which tracks with data around birth rates, and it really shows how even as costs are rising, it doesn't mean that we're getting, more students in or more funding per student, really. So,
and I do want to ensure that we're speaking about the fact, like, we've done deep dives into the enrollment numbers, right? Because in order to ensure that we're looking for root cause of issue, you can't just look at an enrollment decline and make assumptions in regards to why it's declining. And so, I'll have individuals look at these numbers and be like, oh, well, it's because everyone's pulling their students to send them to private school or to homeschool them. No, our percentage disenrolling to go to private school or homeschool has stayed constant, same percentage year after year. We're not seeing a spike or an increase in that. When we go in and we do those deep dives, what we're finding is truly the fact that we are seeing declines in births, which we already knew was going to be a thing. But one of the other factors that we're going to be facing within Peninsula School District and in Gig Harbor is this is the first year of the COVID babies. You may be seeing that all over social media right now. So this kindergarten class is the first year of COVID babies. Affluent communities saw less births during that time period than non-affluent communities. And a lot of it, from what the demographers are stating, it was based upon the fact that in affluent communities, parents were able to transition work from home. They had more flexible work schedules. Both parents stayed working. We weren't necessarily seeing the same situation in non-affluent communities where you had individuals either being laid off, losing their job because they weren't in those critical fields at that time. And so they saw increases in birth rates. And so for us, and when we do a deep dive into our demographics within this community and the number of births that would be associated with our boundary area, we're just seeing a decline, a year after year decline as well. So then when you take that and you look at the incoming kindergarten numbers compared to that decrease that we're seeing in early elementary, it's all tracking. The students aren't there because they weren't born. And so it's declining year after year. But this is a good metric for us to know and to know the why. Because if it's something about, well, we're losing students to X, then you want to be able to go out there and actively say, why? What could we do that would bring you back, right? But if the students don't exist, then it's another problem that you're trying to solve. Then how are we creating really inviting programs that's going to bring individuals into the district? Like, we want to be able to capture that if our current basis right now is the fact that we are not going to have a lot of incoming elementary age kids. Because ultimately, that lower number at elementary, that's eventually going to move up to upper elementary, up into middle school, and into high school. And that's why you start seeing this year after year decline. And it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's just small, incremental every single year, but over time, it's going to add up.
I apologize for not asking this on the last slide, but it just occurred to me as I was looking at the enrollment and thinking about the impact of Running Start, and then with the funding for college and the high school. So I know it's kind of the perennial battle of like course offerings and then how many kids enroll in a course, and then the scheduling is so challenging. Given that college and the high school and Running Start in many cases overlap offerings, whereas the enrollment at Running Start, like, that's going to be what it is. Whereas when we don't get enough kids, say English, you can take it at say you take,
Tacoma Community
College, or you take it at your college and the high school. It has much bigger ripple impacts, right, for us when students choose the Running Start option versus the college and the high school option. Do we have any information on how and why kids are choosing one or the other?
Yeah.
How many credits are being earned one place or another? Anything like that?
Yeah, so James surveyed students last year in order to get information on that, because one of the things, like, I need that data, right? Like, when you're looking at, Brittany, could you just back it up one slide? When you're looking at the 24-25 budget number, that 379 for Running Start, and we're talking 379 full-time equivalent students, and then you see it drop, okay, to 329 as far as the actual realized amounts. It was budgeted based upon where we were in the prior year, okay? And you just take it straight across. So we did see a drop of students of taking Running Start classes when it became free to take the college and the classroom classes. What we found by surveying our students, though, is it wasn't about the classes. It was about the fact that if they went to school through the community college, let's say they only had one in-person day, the rest of their work was done online or was asynchronous, they're working, and so they want to pick up afternoon shifts, and so they only want to go to school in the morning. And so ultimately, sort of like what you were speaking to, it's that scheduling aspect and what sort of works in the schedule of the student. And so ultimately, the data we got wasn't, we don't like the course offerings, or we just prefer the community college environment. It was, the community college offers classes at time periods that I want to take them, evening, early morning, or asynchronous. We can't necessarily compete with that because of all of the regulations and state laws associated with educational minutes and such.
So Ashley, may I just add, this is a conversation that all superintendents are having throughout the state, because our state allows this, and when a student goes to Running Start, their schedule is significantly different than the seat time that is required for basic education, for funding for high school. And so it is a problem that we are raising as superintendents, to demand more flexibility for our students and to keep them on campus. And so more to come with that. But I think that alone might be a whole study session.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think the problem is that the very thing that Ashley is saying is impacting our funding, especially at the high school.
Course offerings too, it's all related, but, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to jump to the general fund revenue slide. So one more, Brittany. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so this is basically a breakdown of all the revenues or all the money that's coming into the general fund. At the top, you'll see local taxes. This is coming directly out of our EP&O levy. That totals to $28 million or $28,630,000 roughly. And that's coming directly from our local taxpayers. At the same time, we do have local non-tax revenues. Those comes in the form of things like donation, the sales of good, facility rentals, investment earnings, and E-rate, which is basically a federal program that reimburses school districts for like internet payments, but it is technically local dollars because that's
It's considered an in lieu of revenue.
yeah, it's considered an in lieu of revenue because it's coming off of taxpayers' cell phone bills directly. So that's why it's called local. It's complicated. For state apportionment, this is basically your prototypical funding model in its largest form. This is a kid goes in, it equates to X teacher salaries, X teacher benefits, X MSOCs, and in many cases, those are very underfunded. But the amount that we totaled for that was $96,900,000, just under. And for state programs, these are all your categorical programs, which have certain requirements when it comes to expending these, and they usually come in the form of grants or some other processes. So these could include the special education safety net, which is for students who have like large expenses related to their special education that simply the prototypical funding model cannot cover in its normal form. This could be LAP funding, highly capable, transitional bilingual, and a lot of other things, as you can see on that list. And that totals to $32,200,000, right under. Under that, you see the federal programs and grants. Once again, you'll see special education. This time, it's coming from your IDEA funding from the federal government. That covers preschool and it covers some high school as well. Along with that, you'll see Title I, Title II, all of your titles, and your National School Lunch Service, along with, actually, there's a typo. There shouldn't be ESSER or ESSER 3. All of those dollars were expended. That's my fault. I made the presentation.
We give him a pass.
Yeah.
What I do want to say, though, in regards to the federal programs, and we'll sort of piggyback off this on the next slide. So you guys heard me present in May. And at that time, we had received 0 allocations from the federal government. And we were being told that we were not going to be receiving our federal appropriations for programs like Title II, Title IV, anything to do with ML populations, so like multi-language learner populations, anything like that the feds were stripping it. Here, within the last 2 to 3 weeks, the federal government was told the Department of Education that they would be releasing the already appropriated funds that were already part of the federal budget. And so because the 25-26 school year funds had already been appropriated by the federal government, there was the decision made to continue to pass them through, okay? Now, what we are being told right now, and again, we know that this can change, but what we are being told right now is enjoy them for the 25-26 school year. You will not be getting them in the same format in the 26-27 school year. And what we are being told is that the federal government and Department of Education is being told to issue block grants to state Department of Education agencies like OSPI. And so the money would come in, and then OSPI would have to put out a block grant for districts to apply for access to the funds. The issue is that we know there's not going to be enough funds to go around, and that the funds will very likely, because they're federal funds, going to be tied to poverty and the demographics of the district. And so if the block grants come in that format, we know Peninsula School District will not be competitive. Now, that's not going to include funds like Title II or Title III. We've already been told that those are gone. Okay, so Title II is our funding that we use for certificated professional development. Title III is money that comes in for our multi-language learners. And so we already know that that's gone as of 26-27. What the block grant looks like, We don't know yet, so hopefully more information is forthcoming. But we are really tracking that. Creston is heavily working with her counterparts in regards to that as well, and what that could look like and what the impacts could be, not only to Peninsula School District, but other districts. And so you will likely hear me talk about federal grants, block grants, federal revenues over the course of this entire school year, because I want to keep everyone informed in regards to what federal revenues are going to be doing in the upcoming years. You are going to see that it's not a significant portion of our budget, but it just shows another area where there's a significant shortfall that we then, and by we, we're talking local taxpayers, are having to make up that difference. And we need to ensure that community understands the why. So you're going to hear more in regards to that. But for the 25-26 school year, they did release the appropriations, and we do have budgets for those programs for this year.
Yeah, so just to wrap those up, don't count ESSERs, but all of those programs together total to just under $5,600,000. For the other entities, these are revenues that come in from other school districts or other government agencies when maybe we contract transportation for them or we do some trainings. This totals to $1,160,000, and that's coming from just, kind of purchase services as if we were the person getting paid.
A good chunk of that is McKinney-Vento transportation. So when we are transporting students, let's say we have a student that is a South Kitsap student, but for whatever reason has had to temporarily relocate their housing into this district, there is state law that then mandates that both South Kitsap and Peninsula School District work together in order to transport that student back to their home school, so that it's not impacting that student's educational quality and they're not having to shift around. And so a good chunk of that money is coming through reimbursement of other school districts. So other school districts have us on their budget and we have them on our budget. So it's just swaps. Oh, yeah. No. I do know that legislatively there was some conversation in regards to it over the last 2 legislative sessions, but ultimately, at least from what I have heard and from what I have seen, is that the overhaul of the STARS process ended up being ditched because there is no good solution on how to fix it. Therefore, it is not a priority as of right now. Because the STARS formula, which is our funding formula for basic education transportation, funds us as the crow flies. And so we know here in Peninsula School District, we have a lot of waterways. We cannot drive a bus through those. And I have checked, we cannot buy ferries and ferry children either because it's not a yellow school bus. And therefore, we drive a ton of miles, like in excess of 1 million miles each year to get around the waterways, but we're still being funded as if we could just literally drive through the water. So we have those issues amongst other districts. Another district I previously worked at had similar issues. But unfortunately, doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to the funding. We get the lower funding amount, and our efficiency rating, which is part of that funding metrics under STARS, then is hampered because of that, which then means we receive even less funding.
So I'll just reiterate with Ashley, that is what I've heard. I know that Donette sits on top leadership for the
She's
state.
the president of WAPT now.
Yeah, and so, but we have not heard anything about STARS at all, and prototypical school formula is very expensive and seems to be a non-starter in our group that we are working with the University of Washington. But that doesn't mean that we should not be planning for the future. So.
Correct. And that's one of the things that we're trying to hit on really heavy this year. Preston is part of her legislative groups. I've joined the Washington Association of Business Officials legislative group, and I'm representing Washington CFOs with them in order to legislate for funding changes that are necessary in order to rectify the issues that we are going to be seeing as a state in public education. And And so we're really trying to band together. You have your CFOs with your superintendents, with your school boards, all these associations getting together to ensure that we have streamlined communications and that we're advocating, in all reality, a lot of times advocating for the same thing, because many voices will hopefully elicit some change. But ultimately, and as we get through the rest of this presentation, you're going to see that's what we need. We can continue to try to be as fiscally conservative as possible in the district, and we can continue to try to right size year after year after year. But ultimately, at some point, something's got to give, and there has to be a restructure of how districts are being funded, because it's not a sustainable model.
Well, that was some good news. Continuing on. If you watched the budget presentation last year, at the very bottom is a new entry. It's the Safety, Security, and Technology Transfer. This comes directly from the capital projects funds and the local taxes that come in there through the Safety, Security, and Technology levy. So to basically explain this, the capital projects fund is generally used for long-term assets. So you can think land, buildings, facilities, or just general capital improvements, but sometimes stuff we want to spend that aligns with the SS&T levy doesn't quite meet the requirements, whether it's like how much it costs. So to kind of reconcile that, we spend it in the general fund, then it's reimbursed by the capital projects fund. So what that does is it basically increases the revenues of the general fund by $5 million, and in tandem increases the expenditures focused on MSOCs, not salaries, by $5 million.
So it's an in and an out. And like a perfect example of this is a computer. A computer in its individual nature is not going to cost in excess of $5,000. In order to be coded to the capital projects fund, I would need each individual computer to cost in excess of $5,000. When it does not, we are required per accounting standards to code it to the general fund and then request reimbursement from the capital projects fund to offset it. But like Logan said, it's not salaries, and it's all items that are aligned to our safety, security, and technology levy plan that's posted online.
Yeah, so the total revenues, once you add all those up, is $173,255,877. And just to kind of visualize this, you can look at the next slide, which makes it into a very nice pie chart. So of that $173 million, roughly 74.5% is coming from the state, and 16.5% is coming from local taxes. And that really goes to show how reliant we are on the state and our local taxes, while the federal government only provides us 3.2% of our revenues, which would be a significant amount to lose, but ultimately it's not the greatest factor. Continuing down, you have the SS&T transfer monies. Those are 2.9%. Those are just, in and out dollars. And then local support non-tax is 2.2, and then other various costs or other various revenues are 0.7%.
That federal piece, though, is key, because part of our work as public school officials isn't necessarily just advocating for ourselves, but advocating for what's right for public schools. So when you see the fact that in Peninsula School District, we only have 3.2% of our revenues coming in from the federal government, could we in some way over 2 years absorb the 3.2%? Well, yes, we could. But we have other districts on the east side of this state that 30% of their revenues are coming from the federal government. And when they lose that funding, there is no way for them to make that up. And ultimately, one of the things that we faced this year when the federal government was pulling those funds was we did have districts in Eastern Washington that would have been automatically in binding conditions due to the loss of those funds. And so we are extremely thankful that we have them now for this year, and we can work on bridging that gap and really strategizing on, if it is no longer existing in its full capacity, how do we work with districts to ensure that they're creating financially conservative plans and will be able to get through what that next year has to offer.
Cool. So moving on to the next slide, this is just kind of an overview for the general fund expenditures, money going out the door. So the first thing you'll see is under staffing costs. This is always the vast majority of your spending in a school district, especially in the general fund. So bargain salary increases across a few of our different associations, including the Teachers Association, was at 3%, 3% increase in salary, I believe, year over year for
For two-year contract, 3% in year 1, 3% in year 2.
For the teachers, which is a large part. This kind of tracks on with the implicit price deflator. So year over year, we get a 2.5% increase in revenues. It's kind of like your cost of living increase that's done by the state to kind of supplement school districts as things like inflation happen. So what you see is that our bargain salary increases are 0.5% higher than that year over year.
One of the things that I do want to point out, because this goes to that prototypical funding formula, is that we receive IPD, so the implicit price deflator, on prototypically funded staff. So based upon my presentation in May, we all know that we're 130 educators over prototypical, and we're 202 classified staff over prototypical. And we're a handful of administrators, I believe it was 4 and a partial administrators over prototypical. So each one of those positions, those fully unfunded positions, we do not receive the IPD on. And so we do have to basically eat the cost budgetarily on that 2.5. But what I will say is that it is not popular when you start picking and choosing which employees are going to receive IPD and which aren't. So normally, if you're giving it, you have to give it to all. You don't get to pick and choose. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the last thing was employer benefit costs, kind of continuing on what Ashley was saying about the prototypical funding model underfunding us. Because we are underfunded by, 130 positions?
Of certs.
Of certs.
And 202 in classified.
And 202 in classified. That means we get no benefits from the state for any of those positions, which could be $20,000 to $30,000 a year for each unfunded position.
And then one of the other things to note is that with the passage of the School Employee Benefit Board, so the state taking over benefits for districts, not necessarily because districts asked for it, but they took it over. The state then created a law that we have to pay the benefits for all staff, regardless of whether or not they accept benefits. So you have a higher military population in your community. They have TRICARE, a spouse works for us, active duty spouse. We still have to pay for their medical benefits, even if they don't take them. They don't have to elect to take them. They count as one, and then we get billed for it. So that's one of the pieces that individuals don't understand, because they're like, oh, but I'm not going to be selecting benefits. And it's like, okay, you don't have to, but the district's still going to have to pay for them.
Yeah. So moving on from staffing costs, another area where we see an increase in expenditures is in our MSOCs, our material, supplies, and operating costs, basically anything that's not staffing. So in this, we see heavy investment in new curriculum, devices, and contracted services to make sure that we are continuing to reinvest in ourselves to make sure that we're competitive among not only within our boundaries, but also without, because we do accept transfers, which means that we do have, we can gain enrollment through that form, even if the students don't exist within our boundaries. Continuing on that, there are some kind of non-discretionary spending that just naturally increases time and time again, and that's your utilities, your insurance, your audit costs, your fuel, your tires, your supplies. All of those things have continued to increase, and it's been kind of unmatched by state funding at the same time. In addition to that, you'll see, kind of like we were talking about earlier with the SS&T transfer, that is going to raise your MSOCs expenditures by roughly $5 million. Perfect. Now on the next slide, we have our staffing. So just kind of two things to quickly go over. This is looking budget year to budget year. So this isn't, you're looking at kind of how enrollment was where it's actual to the next budget year. This is simply looking at budget to budget year. So these are two snapshots in time that you're comparing here. Also, I'll say this is talking about full-time equivalent teachers, or not teachers, full-time equivalent staffs. So maybe you're a part-time person, you're not working 40 hours a week, that person isn't counted. This isn't a head count, this is counting just the proportion of a full-time employee you are and all of that. And that's important for later. But looking at our certificated FTE, we're at 641.25 last year. This year we did go down to 624.9. That's a 16.339 FTE decrease. This kind of aligns with some of the trends we're seeing in enrollment and the fact that as your enrollment shrinks, you can't afford to keep as many certificated teachers, and you simply can't afford to have classrooms that aren't running at full capacity, especially at times like this. Now, on the other hand, you look at classified FTE, it went from about 360.5 to 395, and this does look like and it is a significant increase when it comes to FTE. But if you look at some of the bullet points, particularly the bottom one, it explains how increase to this was the addition of 2 grounds positions and a new classified position that was created. These are activity assistants, which are for recess and lunch supervision. We're making sure that we're making that a priority and expanding that. So a large portion of that increase of 34 is from these activity assistants, and that's important to keep in mind because these are part-time positions. They're only about 15 hours a week. They're paid hourly, which means they don't qualify for benefits. So it's, even though our FTE is going up by 34, because it's mainly in the activity assistance, it's not kind of proportional to what it would normally cost for 34 of the kind of an average classified. So those
Basically, the salary and benefit increases of the positions that did work the lunch and recess supervision have now been offset with the new positions, and then we increase the number of those to ensure that there's plenty of supervision when it comes to recess and lunch.
Yeah, and those FTE are kind of cheaper by comparison to other FTE. So continuing on, we have our MSOC disclosure, which is in accordance with RCW 28A 505. So for the MSOC disclosure, what we're covering here is your basic education MSOC. So for, like you could see with Senate Bill 5192 from last year, that was directly increasing the MSOC allocation per pupil or per full-time student. So it's basically one student's worth, I don't know, $150 or something. I don't know the number. But that's how you get the projected MSOC revenue. So that's by multiplying our enrollment by the per pupil allocation. And that goes directly into Program 01, which is basic education, and Program 97, which is district-wide support, which are kind of your 2 big general pots of money, I guess you could call them. So when you look at our expenditures for Program 01 and 97 totaled up, you see that our supplies are just over $9 million. Our contracted services are under $13.2 million, just under, and our travel is $264,500. Our capital outlay is $700,000, and that all totals to $23,168,989. And why I do want to make it very clear, this is talking about our basic education. So this is not talking about your kind of your SPED, your
CTE.
other categorical or your other other categorical programs. So like your title, your SPED, your transportation, your food service, like all those things are separate from these numbers. But with that $23 million number, the unfunded part from the state, because these are only state revenues that we're talking about on this slide, is $10,366,999, and that's a pretty big jump, as you see, and that has to be kind of paid for in some other form, whether it be our local levy or the money we get from local non-tax or just the federal government in its form.
Logan, what did you do in regards to this last legislative session?
Yeah, so I went to Capitol Hill, I think March, probably last year. I went with Preston, our superintendent, Natalie Wimberly, and a few of our other student board representatives. I've since retired from that position, but at the time we were there to kind of look at some of the education impact. We were looking at some of the bills that would impact education funding, particularly. There's Senate Bill 5192, which I mentioned earlier, which was talking about MSOC, so your material supplies and operating costs allocation. Then I believe it was Senate Bill 5263, which was talking about our SPED allocations, which is also very important. So while I was there, I was just in the audience in one of the I forget, it was a committee, I believe it was a House Appropriations Committee is where the bill was, and I got the opportunity to speak and testify on behalf of Senate Bill 5192 and the crucial underfunding that is happening kind of systemically across the state. So that was good time.
And then guess what the state did? They gave us $5 per student.
Yeah.
Should not be a reflection of Logan's efforts. I watched it, he did a really good job, but but this is a key piece because you are going to see this as another legislative priority this year. This underfunding right here, and these are basic pieces. Like this is your insurance and your utilities. This is keeping the lights on. This is making sure we have library materials. In all reality, when you look at what the essence of basic education, that's what these things are. These aren't the extras, and yet we still have an underfunding of almost $10.4 million. And after all of that back and forth of $500 per student, and to finally see the what actually came of it, of we're going to give you $5, but in addition to only giving you $5, what we're also going to do is instead of individually breaking out the categories so that districts can then look at their data and specifically see each category that's underfunded, what did the state do? They grouped it all together from now on. And so now when we are legislating for, let's say, increase revenues to offset liability insurance, we can't tell them how far underfunded we are because now they're just giving us one bucket of money. It's not split out based upon library or curriculum or technology or any of that, just one pot, and then we gave it to you, you decide how to spend it. So do you want liability insurance? Do you want libraries? So by doing that, they've now removed our opportunity to provide that direct data back to the state in regards to those underfunding. So yes, we got $5 per student, but they made it harder for us to lobby in the future.
Yeah.
And the compounding effect can't be understated because we were talking, I pulled up our graphic that we had shared with all of our legislators that all the districts had because I'm looking back at this 2023, we were underfunded by 8.57 million. 2022 was 12.08 million underfunding. 2021, 8.05, 2020, 7.66 million. So it's just an unbelievable compounding.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, and I know that we are seeing it in our personal lives as well, right? Like you see the increased gas taxes and what it does to your own personal budget. Then you just multiply it by 100 bus routes, And so we are absorbing those cost shifts within the district. And ultimately, we don't necessarily have, I can't barter with our risk pool in order to get lower insurance premiums or lower costs in utilities. It's one of those just we know and we just have to expect for it to increase. But when the MSOC increases coming in from the state are not even keeping up with just the normal rate of inflation, it becomes problematic, especially when the narrative is that we're fully funded. So ultimately, if we were to truly try to fund a district for the operational material supplies and operating cost side with only $12.8 million, I mean, you're talking unbelievably significant cuts, especially when 3.5 million of that 12 million is simply our liability insurance bill.
Cool. So on the next slide, this is kind of similar to the revenue slide you saw earlier. This is just breaking out the expenditures. So our certificated salaries, that's your teachers, principals, assistant principals, district admin, and a bunch of other very important positions. That total is just under $75 million. Classified salaries, which include things like paras, health technicians, clerical staff, custodians, bus drivers, etc. Those all total up to roughly $32.3 million. And just to kind of, for people who are watching or don't particularly follow this a lot, certificated staff are staff that require a certificate for their position. So you're required to be licensed to be a teacher. You aren't necessarily required to be licensed to be a clerical staff kind of thing, stuff like that. And it's a specific certification. Continuing on, you see employee benefits, all all of the payroll taxes, all of the health insurance, all of the benefits associated with our staffing costs, that comes to $35,370,000, which is pretty high. But continue on, you see our supplies. This is your classroom item, all the supplies you need, all the software, curriculum, devices, a lot of necessary things. Wood chips are safer than stone, probably. I'd hope.
This is also like where like Peninsula School District provides school supplies for all students. And so this incorporates the school supplies. And yes, it's safer than stone. A lot of times, sometimes it's safer than rubber, depending upon who you ask. But yes, wood chips, it's about facility maintenance.
Yeah. Do need to get those wood chips changed out pretty often. So that's all the supplies are just under $12,300,000. Our purchase services, which are your utilities, your different contracts like food service, your liability insurance, and then other contracted services or staff that you can't really compete with in terms of salary for bringing them in-house. So sometimes you have to contract out for kind of more specialized positions that you have to compete with the private sector specifically. And that comes out to $22 million or $22,624,500. Yeah, $22,624,000. Cool. So on travel, this is kind of your mileage reimbursement for staff who are doing kind of regular travel, doing that stuff, whether it be going to different conferences or just different district business. Along with that, you see travel costs. These can be things like buses for athletics or just other kind of out-of-district travel, which is kind of crucial for keeping up our communication channels with other districts or other organizations or, with the state itself.
And one of the things I want to say on travel is individuals look at $425,000 and they're like, oh my gosh, just cut all the travel, and then that's X number of positions. So when you work for a company, private company, public entity, it doesn't matter, you are required to reimburse mileage when individuals are traveling for their position. As in, if you have an individual, let's say, that is a teacher in Artendale, and we are mandating that they drive from Artendale over to the district office to attend a training, they submit reimbursement for the mileage incurred for that training, and then we then are required to pay that mileage. That's federal law. So we have to do that at the federal rate that is provided each year and increased in January. In addition to that, I'm going to speak from my auditor with my auditor hat for a second. When I was auditing public entities over several years, one of the things that I found is that the second an entity cut travel, they cut professional development. When they cut professional development, when I was back there 2 to 3 years later, they had audit findings. Why? Because they did not have all of the most recent legal compliance pieces related to the job that they were doing, because they were not able to attend those conferences, the professional development, in which 9 times out of 10 that information is coming from. So although when we're dealing with, budget crunches, I like to see overall travel decrease slightly. There are specific things that you cannot cut from a travel perspective. 1, IRS reimbursements. 2, we have to have staff that are properly trained. You do a curriculum adoption, we have to train the staff on the curriculum. If we have federal changes to funding coming, I have to get staff out there to be trained on what those changes are. If we do not train on it, that does lead to audit issues. Audit issues lead to higher costs for future audits, loss in transparency, loss in trust. It becomes a lot more costly. So I do want to call it out. Yes, $425,000 for travel. Again, this is IRS reimbursable rates for mileage associated with individuals doing their job. Yes, there's travel registrations and all of that in there, but I wanted to provide that perspective.
Perfect. So continuing on to capital outlay, these are items over $5,000 that maybe don't necessarily fit into the capital projects fund. So these can be our musical instruments for all of our music and band programs, different vehicles, garbage bins, and just other really necessary equipment across the district. That totals to $884,000 $884,100. And altogether, that's $769,283. Yeah. So
And budgets
That's a
are
budget.
based on expenditures, okay? So when we talk about approving a budget, what is being approved through that resolution is that expenditure value for each fund. So that number right there is what we would be pushing forward for the district's budget in the 25-26 school year.
yeah, so kind of how it works, kind of continue on that, is your revenues could go up or down, but ultimately that total expenditure amount is the capacity that we legally are able to spend as a district.
Without coming back to you guys for a budget extension.
Never happens. So continue. So continuing on to our general fund expenditures chart, you can see in the blue, red, and green, these are all of your salaries, benefits, and your classified salaries also. So CERT salaries were totaled to 41.9%. Employee benefits were 19.8%. Classified salaries were 18.1%. Purchase services 12.7%. Supplies 6.9%. Capital outlay at 0.5%, and then travel at 0.2%. So kind of analyzing this from a kind of above or overarching kind of analysis, you see that our salaries and benefits for as a percentage of our expenditure, so that's just how much money we paid for salaries and benefits combined divided by our total expenditures, that is 79.74%. So if you've heard Ashley speak at these kind of meetings before or in the monthly budget reports, you hear her talk about this kind of 80-20 split between salaries and MSOCs, which is kind of your investment into the students directly apart from staffing. But one of the things, while we are currently there technically, what we did want to bring up is the fact that the SS&T transfer, when that comes in, that's being spent that raises revenues and it raises expenditures at the same time, and that's not being spent on staffing. So if you really want to take
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not the updated presentation, it's fine. Just explain it.
yeah, so the number on there, the 84.72, that's wrong. We're ignoring that for now. If you take the salaries and benefits excluding the SS&T transfer, the expenditures tied to that, we get to 82.4%. So basically, if you just ignore the transfer, the SS&T transfer, for every dollar that we're spending as a district, 82 cents of that is going to staff and salaries. And if we see that number kind of continue to go up or continue to stay high or continue to grow, it does mean that we are kind of limiting our ability to invest in certain curriculum programs or technology and various other things.
And so one of the things that I wanted to point out in this, so yes, that one up there is saying 84.72. The one that's on board docs should be updated to the one that we're looking at right now. The one that we're looking at right now has salaries and benefits excluding the SS&T transfer at 82.04%. The reason why that is key is, yes, I have talked quite at length in regards to this 80-20 split when it comes to your overall expenditures. And we have this revenue stream of the safety, security, and technology levy that, like you heard Logan state, the expenditure is $5 million, the revenue is $5 million. But when you're increasing your overall revenues and expenditures, it throws off your percent. And so to ensure that we are all on the same page as far as what we are talking about when we're talking about the percentage of our overall budget, so the percentage of our overall general fund that is going towards salaries and benefits, I wanted to differentiate between the two figures. And one, yes, we're at just under 80%, which is good. That's the place where when I'm working through staffing and all of that, that's my goal every year, because you need the dollars to reinvest back into the kids, the programs, purchase the school supplies, make sure you have money for the purchase services, all of that. But we can't ignore the fact that with the increase of the revenues and expenditures through the SS&T, we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, because if you do not, then ultimately a district can find themselves in a financial dilemma overnight without even realizing it, because they were comparing the wrong numbers, okay? So yes, we're at 80%. That is healthy. That is where we need to be. If you exclude the SS&T, which technically inflates the expenditures and revenues, we're at 82%. We were right around 82% last year as well. And so that's a solid place. We still are bringing in enough now with that offset from the SS&T to invest back into programs in order to sustain operations.
So the next slide is just a general fund summary. This is your budget to budget from 24-25 to 25-26. So our beginning fund balance is going to be dropping down from about $15.5 million to $12.9 million. That's just kind of how much you're starting the year with, how much you can draw down on, or not how much you can draw down on, but how much you would be theoretically able to draw down on. Looking below that, we have our revenues. Our revenues did increase by about $7 million, by about $7 million. And I believe this is including the SS&T transfer. It's based on
Correct.
budget figures that were updated when the board approved the budget extension. So that is $7 million increase in revenue that are kind of real, I guess you could call them. Now for expenditures, we increased them by about $7,500,000. So that is kind of growing the deficit if you look between the revenues and expenditures, and that's going from $171,256,000 to $178,769,000. So with those numbers, we can track our ending fund balances, and just keep in mind for 24-25, that was just our projected or estimated ending fund balance. In reality, the $12.9 million number is much closer to kind of reality, kind of between that time. Makes sense? Yeah. So our ending fund balance decreased, or is projected to decrease from $10,522,961 to $7,405,000. And with that, kind of below that, we kind of broke out the ending fund balance and kind of what's contained in that, because there are different kind of classifications for carryover money that you bring over from year to year. So your restricted monies, those are kind of like your monies that are legally tied to like compliance. So like food service is a great instance. The food service revenue that we get from the federal government, we can't expend that in any other area. And I believe that's what makes up most of the 24-25 restricted ending fund balance. But for this year, we didn't have any projected restricted ending fund balance. So
Which
that just means
we spent that overage down in the food service program this year.
yeah. So continuing on, we have our unreserved / unrestricted balance. We do want to make sure that we make it clear there is an asterisk there. That's because both of these numbers contain $1 million of assigned funds. These are kind of funds that are assigned for a specific purpose, and although it is assigned for that purpose can technically be changed through board approval, so it's not legally restricted in a form.
One of the things I do want to talk about on this slide, so we're looking at our general fund summary, okay? One of the things that you heard me state even during our budget status update is we, Peninsula School District, we were able to build and balance a budget. Okay, I have a lot of peers and counterparts that still right now have not been able to build and balance a budget for the upcoming year. We were able to do so, but we were able to do so by really, really scrutinizing all money in, all money out, which programs in priority order needed to receive the funding, which commitments have been made both through the strategic plan, local levies, all of that, making sure that they're receiving their appropriate funding. And then ultimately, if there were funding requests that didn't hit strategic plan initiative, levy initiatives, and there was no funding left, those programs received either less funding or no funding in the upcoming year. For a district of our size to have an ending fund balance of 4% or 4.14%, which us as a district, we're going to work on growing that over the course of the year, going out for more competitive grants that aren't necessarily earmarked for a specific new program per se. We're going to be actively doing that, but this is going to be a systemic issue. And I'm sorry if I'm feeling like a broken record, but it all comes back down to the prototypical funding formula. It's not sufficient. Having a funding formula that was built in the late 1970s that's still alive and being utilized now in order to fund districts individuals can think about what a school district was in the late 1970s, 1978, 1979 versus what a school district is nowadays, the needs are different. The needs have changed. We don't, having a 21st century district that receives funding for 4 technology positions total in a district when you have 15 to 18,000 connected devices is not sufficient. That is not fully funding an actual public school district in the 21st century. And there has not been changes to that in any type of significant way. There's been minor changes. Hey, you're going to receive a counselor enhancement if you're a high poverty, very diverse school district, not Peninsula School District. Hey, we're going to enhance, your allocation for like a safety security position, but the overall enhancement is like a 0.3. And it's like, okay, what day of the week are we going to have someone come in? So those type of changes, although again, we're going to be grateful for anything that we can get because ultimately it does at least help, it's not fixing the situation that we are facing. And so ultimately, like I've already talked to like our cabinet team, our executive cabinet team in regards to the need to ensure that we are continually brainstorming this year on how, if something doesn't happen legislatively, which it doesn't sound like it's going to, but if it doesn't and the federal money goes away and the enrollment's declining, how do we continue to prioritize investment into students, continue advocating for additional funding, and be able to meet the needs of our students and our community, and continue to provide the level of service that they expect and deserve to be provided. That is our work this year. Because again, we thankfully do have a fund balance to draw from this year. But if we simply go into it thinking that someone's going to come in and fix this for us, they're not going to. Okay, if the state was able to fix it for us, I'm fairly positive they would have done something last year when they had districts like Seattle at the table. Okay, so if they can't fix it for us, then it is our job to be cognizant of every dollar in, every dollar out, and really work towards what are our priorities, where is the alignment of the funding, and how do we ensure that we're basically reinvesting in ourselves to somehow grow our enrollment, grow our programs, bring kids in. That's what we're going to need to be focusing on.
Yeah, we were obviously promised from Senator Wellman and Representative Santos they would really help us in the Big Three last year, and that didn't happen. 11 years ago, the school board, we put that $1 million set aside. We
The
created that
contingency.
as a sort of a rainy day fund. 11 years ago, our revenue was 120 million, now it's 170 plus million. And so I was under the impression when we created that $1 million, it was restricted and it was for something like catastrophic.
Yeah,
The roof went
it's
down.
considered an assigned contingency.
Right. So I guess in today's day and age, is it something that you recommend that we continue to keep that $1 million that's been in place for 11 years? I know some people want us to like make that go, do something with that, but what are your thoughts on that $1 million that was set aside so long ago?
So my personal opinion, knowing the school district's finances, where we're trending, is there's no benefit to having $1 million set aside for an assigned contingency. One, $1 million nowadays is not going to get us very far. And two, ultimately, my personal opinion, I'm speaking Ashley as a CFO, I don't necessarily like to see fund balance set aside in a specific contingency for something, because ultimately, if something catastrophic happens, that's what we have insurance for. That's what we have. Ultimately, if it's catastrophic, we're talking like a FEMA issue or something. There's other sources of revenues that's going to be coming in at that side. What I like to see when I'm looking at numbers is I prefer to see from just the reality standpoint, hey, I know I have $7.4 million to work with. Yes, it's inclusive of that $1 million that's assigned to a contingency right now, but I do know that if the district were at a point where I needed that $1 million, one, we have much bigger problems at play because it literally means we're going into binding conditions if I'm having to have you release $1 million. But it's almost like no harm, no foul. It can sit out there. We don't necessarily need it right now. But if there was a time that came up where I said, hey, based upon fund balance, if we don't release that, I can't make payroll, you guys would have heard about that way in advance of that. So it doesn't hurt to have it out there. It's just not technically relevant to where we are currently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time we had, Ardendale was, they were putting buckets in hallways and, for leaky roofs, and
Makes
the
total
sky
sense.
was falling, and we were like, okay, we need to set some money aside.
Yeah.
And so we did. So I'm just wondering if it's, if you said to the board, having that restriction lifted and let me use it however I want.
Yeah.
Is that something you would
You'll likely hear from me at some point this year to start having that conversation. Not because I'm stating that the district is so financially not well off that we're going to need that last $1 million, but just because when you're talking about forecasting, when you're talking about looking into the future, you want to know all the pieces that you have that you're going to have in your belt at that time. And so ultimately, if it comes to the point where after talking with the team, after talking with Creston, we determine, hey, having that assigned contingency fund sitting out there actually is going to negatively impact our plans on how we're going to rectify continued budget constraints, you guys will hear from me and we can have that conversation at that point. It's easy. All you do is technically rescind the resolution in which you had agreed to in order to assign the funds to a contingency. And that's something that we can do relatively quickly. But ultimately, I wouldn't suggest that unless I had data and trends to support why it was necessary. And that's the work that we're going to be working on here into the fall and winter of the school year.
Yeah. So just kind of wrapping that up, it isn't restricted in terms of like a legal, like deliverable sense, kind of from the source, but we wouldn't be able to spend it without a board resolution. That's kind of the message. So we have our $7.4 million unreserved fund balance. That leaves us with a fund balance that has dropped from 4.47% to 4.147%. And that's taking the unreserved portion of your balance and dividing it by the expenditures for the year. Cool. So for that wrapped up the entire general fund. So now we'll just be focusing on the other funds, which are a bit quicker. So starting on the capital projects fund, this is used for the acquisition and construction of major capital facilities. Our revenue sources are kind of three main ones. Our state match funds, which are running out because those are state match funds on our bond money spending, which we are just kind of wrapping up. We're not completely done, but we're, for all intents and purposes, we are at the end of that.
The bond dollars have been spent. What is remaining is the state match and interest earned on the bond dollar.
Yeah, because we have to file a report to kind of update that information from the state perspective. Impact fees, they come from the
Developers.
They come from the city of Gig Harbor and Pierce County because developers, when they, like, for instance, build a new house, they ideally will bring in families to the school district, and that means that you have more kids that simply kind of go, the state calls it unhoused, where there isn't necessarily a spot in there. So these impact fees that come from developers are almost always spent on the construction of things like portables, which allow for those unhoused students to have a place in school.
Henderson Bay is technically our only educational facility right now that is considered to have unhoused students, and it's simply because of the size and the makeup of the Henderson Bay facility in and of itself. And so impact fee wise, we're not bringing in a significant amount year from year, simply because with the passage of the bond and the building out of the other schools, we now have capacity for new students.
Yeah, so I think just to kind of focus on that, it will be mentioned later, but the impact fees for this year I think are only $150,000 in the capital projects fund, which is a significant amount of money, but it's relatively small compared to the local levy, the Safety, Security, and Technology levy, which is kind of the main source of revenue for it, and it's going to be spent through aligning with the Safety, Security, and Technology goals.
And that 150,000, when we're talking about it, it's technically not super significant. To get a portable in and put on, permitted and built out, you're talking $750,000 nowadays, and that's for a portable. And so, yes, we're bringing in 150,000, but it would take year after year after year of saving that to even afford a single portable. So when we talk about the overall impact of impact fees, because our district does not have what constitutes unhoused students, it's very small percentage.
Yeah, so just to give kind of an example of some of the projects that have happened in the past and that some are being finished up now, kind of to kind of understand the type of expenditures that happen in this, we see like our elementary schools, which were built in prior years from the passage of the bond, the modernization of our middle schools, which I believe was also tied to that at Key Peninsula and Kopachuk. You have the Swift water. There was a conversion of an office to a restroom. There was a Kopachuk portable removal. Improvements to our water systems, and the last thing will be spending aligned with the SS&T plan. So that could be technology. I think like the key card readers on all the doors to make sure our doors are safe and secure, along with just various other spending.
And these are just example projects. Like, we know that we got 6 schools out of the bond and only 4 are listed. The reason those 4 are listed are because those are the ones that we're still working through sign off on. And therefore, we're still going to see minimal expenditures coming through Capital Projects Fund in the upcoming year.
Yeah, Patrick is still kind of working on going through those projects and finishing up the punch list. So for the Capital Projects Fund, this is just a summary slide. So the beginning funding balance of the 25-26 proposed budget is going to be just over $10.5 million. This is down from the $17 million beginning fund balance of last year. It's because we've spent it down as we've continued to support our projects. Now for our revenues, these have decreased from $7.96 million to $7.368 million. This kind of just pairs with those state matching funds kind of running out. And you can see that down below, kind of the restricted state matching funds are decreasing, or have decreased significantly. Along with that, we have our expenditures, and just to include it, transfers aren't technically an expenditure if you look at it from an accounting perspective, but that is money that's leaving the Capital Projects Fund into the general fund, and that's the $5 million transfer contained in that. So you see about $18.9 million in expenditures in the prior year and $17.43 million this upcoming year. That leaves us with an ending fund balance of $449,000. And this, it may seem low, but if you kind of think about it, this isn't where you're doing your payroll. You don't kind of need a minimum fund balance at all times. And ideally, we want to have the capacity in this fund to spend any money we kind of need to.
Because ultimately, the purpose of the Capital Projects Fund, when you go out and you pass a levy or you pass a bond and money then hits your Capital Projects Fund, is to spend it on that intended purpose, not to sit it in the account and utilize it as a savings account. So ultimately, you want to be budgeting to finish your projects and spend down that fund. So I always expect to see that ending fund balance decrease year after year, especially now that we're at the tail end of our bond projects.
Yeah, so at the bottom there, I broke out kind of the different parts of the ending fund balance. There's $168,000 of committed levy proceeds from the SS&T levy. That's just us spending down the money we're bringing in. That's down from $2 million a year prior. Restricted state matching funds, these are when we spend our bond dollars, get matched. We are only going to have $92,000 of those remaining. We have restricted impact fees. That's from your local developers, once again, to support unhoused students. That's actually going up from $100,000 to $150,000. And for our assigned to fund purposes, which is just aligning with Capital Projects Fund, that's just some money, for lack of a better word, sitting there. That's just over $38,000.
That's interest dollars that are sitting there in the fund that has, we have more flexibility in how they're spent, so you don't want to commit them, you don't want to restrict them, you just want to assign them in a way that you're saying, hey, we acknowledge that we're going to have to spend it in the intent of what a capital projects fund is for. So capitalized assets or improvements to facilities.
Yeah, but kind of bringing us back earlier, these are kind of unrestricted dollars. These aren't like legally required to be spent in a particular way apart from capital projects requirements. Now for the next slide, we're going to get into our debt service fund. This is solely and only used, this is only money used to pay down the bond that we passed a few years prior. This is we're us paying down the principal and interest. All of it's kind of contained in this one fund. So the primary revenue source is just local taxes levied that were approved by voters. So continuing to the summary page, we'll see that our estimated beginning fund balance is $8.7 million, up from $7.5 million. Our revenues are $12.18 million, up from $11.793 million, and our expenditures kind of slightly increased to match that from $11.2 million to $11,586,000. That leaves us with a estimated ending fund balance of $9.3 million, up from $8.1 million the year prior. And one kind of confusing part about this is, why would you keep so much money in an account that's designed to pay down our bond and inherently our interest? And that's just because there's a discrepancy between the bond repayment process. They run on a calendar year while we run on a fiscal year from September to August. So the money that's kind of staying in the fund is designed to pay for the next year's fall debt service payment. And to just kind of break down the expenditures on that, it's not your ending fund balance, it's the expenditures at the bottom. You have your matured bond payment, which is the principal that we're paying down. That's at $5,090,000, up from $4.5 million. And our interest payment on the bonds is down from the prior year it started last year at $6,690,000, and it went down to $6,486,000. So that does show how we're increasing our payments on the principal and decreasing our payments on the interest. And at the bottom, there's just $10,000 in bond transfer fees for each year. Cool. So the ASB fund, this is not kind of a district guided fund. This is basically all of the student bodies at all the different schools. So high school, middle school, or some of the elementary schools. They all have, or some of them have associated student bodies, and basically all the money's tied to that, and all the projected expenditures are all just kind of combined at a district level to represent it in this fund.
So it's all directed by the student population with support from their building principals and their ASB advisors.
Yep. So just looking at the estimated beginning fund balance between all of the ASBs combined, we are projecting to start at $1.75 million. This is up from the prior year at $1.51 million. Our revenues are looking like they're going to decrease by about $300,000 from $2.2 million to $1.9 million. And our expenditures at the same time are projected to go up from 1.98 to 2.78 million. And that leaves us with an ending fund balance of just under $900,000, down from 1.8 the prior year. And just because the ASBs are spending down the money doesn't mean that's a bad thing necessarily. We've seen in the past that sometimes the ASB class accounts and the ASB accounts as a whole are holding on to too much money, which means that when a student is actually fundraising directly for ASB, sometimes that money isn't even being spent during their high school career. So that's just kind of an important thing that we want to mention about the ASB funds, is we want to make sure that the students who are kind of working to fundraise for maybe a specific club or just specific activities are getting to kind of reap the reward of their efforts. That's just holding money in an account that only students can approve to spend. Cool. So the last fund that we'll go over, it's the last one, is the Transportation Vehicle Fund. This fund is solely used for the purchasing of new and used yellow school buses. This isn't kind of district delivery vehicles. This isn't vans. This is directly yellow school buses, which you can see driving down the road. So for the Transportation Vehicle Fund, the estimated beginning fund balance is $2.7 million roughly, up from $2.36 million. Our revenues, which are from the state depreciation schedule to basically kind of create a cycle of us getting new and getting rid of old school buses kind of over time, Our revenues were about $1.2 million, are going to be $1.2 million for this next year, and that's down from $1.35 million the prior year. Our expenditures are looking to go up because we will be purchasing some new school buses this next year. The expenditures are up to $3.8 million, and then the prior year they were $1.5 million. That leaves us with our estimated ending fund balance of $110,000, down from $2.2 million.
One of the key pieces with this is that it is very, very important for a district to really monitor their TVF fund. And the reason being is, like Logan said, the revenues coming in are state depreciation dollars. So some districts will say, hey, we're going to save some money. We're not going to purchase a bunch of new buses. We're just going to collect the depreciation dollars. The issue is buses get more expensive every single year. Depreciation dollars aren't increasing every single year. And each year out you get from a new bus purchase, you have other buses falling off the depreciation schedule, so they're no longer funded. So when you see that our revenues decrease from 1.3 million down to just under 1.2, but you see an increase in expenditure, we need to get some new buses in our fleet. Then we surplus the old buses that are off the depreciation schedule, because then what you're going to see next year is an increase to our revenues in the fund. So you never want to, in 1 year, purchase too many buses, because then they all fall off the depreciation schedule at the exact same time, and you're not able to replace them in that manner. So you do it sequentially year after year.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify for anyone in the audience or anyone watching, the depreciation schedule is kind of like, if you've ever heard, you buy a car, you drive it off the lot, you've lost like 50% of the car's value. So what's happening here is that just year over year, the state is kind of reimbursing for that portion of the bus that's depreciating or lost its value, and that kind of allows us over time to cycle out our buses to make sure that they're effective. Yeah.
So in past years, we replaced all our buses because they were on the depreciation schedule, so we really never had to use any of our levy money or to
Correct.
pay for our buses. And that's still the case today.
Correct.
But as the trend moves along, and looking at where we're at now, are we solidly in that position going forward in the future?
Yeah, we are solidly in that position now. One of the things that helps us is Donette's a good grant writer. And if you guys recall from the budget presentation last year, she received a grant from the federal government for $250,000 to offset the purchase of some propane buses. And it was $25,000 per, and we could purchase 10 buses and receive that reimbursement. Now, it doesn't cover the full cost of a bus, but $25,000 off of a bus, I mean, that's a pretty good coupon discount. And so she's really good and cognizant, and with her work at the state level, it really primes her to be competitive in those avenues, and that's one of the ways that she brings in additional revenues. And she's also, because she's been in this industry so long, she knows the balance of you spend to receive, and you need that forward thinking and that forecasting to know what you're going to be bringing in versus what you should be replacing. And so she keeps us in a really good place when it comes to this fund.
Yeah, to kind of like sum all that up, this fund itself is designed to be like self-sufficient. If you want to talk about underfunding when it comes to transportation, you have to look at the general fund, program 99, which is our pupil transportation program, and that's where we're seeing a deficit spending from the district, and that's what was covered by one of the big three last year, which was SPED, MSOX, and transportation, which unfortunately didn't really get any traction at the state level. So with all that covered, this is our final slide. So just to kind of reiterate, this was the 25-26 preliminary budget. This will not be moved for approval today. This will be approved ideally or hopefully in the next meeting on the 26th, where we will kind of go over this presentation again in a more kind of abridged form.
Very, very high level. Unless you have very detailed questions, it will just be hitting some specific points. So that's what we're looking at. Questions? I know it's a ton of information. I'm sorry for everyone that I said it would only take 20 minutes. I did. I know. I just looked at the time. I was like, that was not 20 minutes.
Yeah, next year we can do, or next week we can do like, next week we can do like 8. I could probably do 5. Next
Oh,
week we can do
okay.
5.
Okay.
He's setting his sights large here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take 20.
Okay,
I'd like to make one comment. We're having funding problems throughout the state. And we keep talking about lobbying the legislatures. And really, there's only been one thing that has increased the funding in this state. And that was a lawsuit by McClary. And we need to be looking at that again. We, as school districts throughout this state, need to put our foot down. Lobbying's not working. What is it they say, that if you keep on doing the same thing you've been doing, you're going to keep on getting the same thing you've been getting? And that's where we're at. You know, the only thing, this state is not doing its job. We have to come together as school districts and make them. And I think our associations need to start talking about this. It's the only way, obviously. So.
Yeah.
That's my comment.
What I will say about like a potential lawsuit is that lawsuits like that, especially when it's so massive and against the state, is they could take, years, and then even if they are decided, it could take years for the actual kind of reconciliation to take place. So I think it really kind of speaks to the kind of continued scrutiny that we need in the upcoming years, because we can't, like, even if there is a lawsuit, we can't hope that it'll kind of
Right.
come to pass before, school districts start running out of money, which they already have.
Well, lobbying,
Wise advice from a
Yeah.
future CFO.
yeah. Lobbying doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's going to take years, then we better get started.
Well, and that's, so one of the things that I've been working with some of my counterparts are, you guys heard me in May talk about the IOU that we received from the state,
Yeah.
because they were upside down $80 million.
Right.
Okay? And so in May and June, we got hey, we're good for it. We'll give you the rest of your apportionment in July and August, because that pushes that cost, that 80 million, into their next fiscal year. Therefore, they can hit their next year budget. But we already know, because they did that, they're already $80 million in the hole. And that's just in the public education sector. We aren't necessarily cognizant and don't know what other IOUs they had to put out there, right? We also know that the state revenue forecast spending, it's down. And so ultimately, when you pair both of those pieces, and we have a shortened legislative session coming up, like, the writing's on the wall. We can't sit here and wait for some type of bailout. We can't wait for someone to come in and fix the revenue situation that districts are having. So ultimately, what we are trying to do, yes, we're going to try to legislate. Yes, we're going to try to lobby, ultimately, because we want our voices heard. We want our voices heard collectively. But at the same time, we can be doing that, but we have to be working behind the scenes, because myself, as a CFO for Peninsula School District, I can only work and control with what's in the confines of what we have. Those are my knowns. And, I can work with teams to strategize. How do we make these systems more efficient? How do we do more with less people? Because ultimately, as you saw in the budget, people is the vast majority of our budget. And these people are our community members. These are our taxpayers. They have value. We want them here. So then you end up with this conflict of, we value the work that they do, and at the same time, we don't have the money to pay everyone that we have year after year after year. And so then you have to balance that, because ultimately, if we put our heads in the sand and we just wait and say, okay, well, if enough districts go into binding conditions, they're gonna have to do something. We have more districts in binding conditions right now in this moment than this state ever had from the time in which public education was instituted.
Yeah.
All right now. And
There's
These
no
districts, nope, these districts are having to come in and figure it out, or the state's coming in, and what the state is doing is they're just slashing, you know?
Yeah.
It's not then based or prioritized on what that community wants their school district to be, what the staff want or know or need. It's, you know, a direction coming from the state saying, hey, you know, based upon comparable districts, you're too high in this area, so you just need to go in and you need to lay off 20%. And so that's the place that obviously we never want to be in, and we will not be in. But the way we go about our day-to-day decisions from a financial perspective, what we do as far as advocating and going out there to try to obtain other competitive grants, especially if they're not earmarked for districts with diverse demographics or poverty, that's what we're doing. And it obviously takes a team in order to do that. It also takes strong partnerships, you guys, with our union partners. Right. And I cannot speak to that enough, because ultimately, like, we are a massive community. We have a lot of staff in this district. And without that partnership with our unions and not being able to work together, if we were divisive and working against each other, that also causes downturns of districts extremely quickly. And I believe that our partnership, even, you know, with our certificated union with PEA through this last bargain, shows the level of commitment that the district and our union partners have to continue to see, you know, financial success for this district. And by financial success, sometimes that just means, hey, I'm going to be able to close the year with a fund balance, and I'm going to be able to pay all of our bills this year. For us to be able to say that right now, that is financial success. And that's the state of education.
Yeah.
So I would just like to propose, I feel like you opened a can of worms that we could talk about and really have some deep commitments. And I know that this staff has worked really hard on this budget for this next year. I know that all of our partners have worked really hard at right sizing. We did that one of the earliest school districts, 3 years ago? I don't know, I've lost track.
It's
3 years ago, and we have been committed to living within our means. It's just that our shirts and our pants are getting really tight.
Yeah.
They're really, really tight now.
Yeah.
And so I think what I would like to propose, because it has been 2 hours, I would like to propose that we complete this portion. And if you wish to have further conversations, we're going to be here next week again.
Yeah.
So we could have that continued conversation as well.
Thank you.
Logan, that was. No other questions from the board? Okay,
Nice job, Logan.
yeah.
Thank you.
And Ashley, of course.
okay. Logan, you get paid money.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to cut off the board. That was not the
No, I
intent.
think we're done with
Okay.
comments now, so. Okay, so at this time now, we'll recess into the public hearing. I invite public comment on the proposed preliminary budget. So we have nobody signed up, but I'm required to call for public comment on the proposed budget 3 times. So is there anyone who would like to speak on the proposed budget? Yeah, just come to the podium. And we may not be able to answer it directly, but if we can't answer it, then we can make sure someone gets back
You
to
guys
you.
have a meeting next week, so it's fine.
Yes.
So 2 things during the presentation that I was hoping to get some follow-up information on. I'm Jackie Pinkerton. I'm a parent here. So there's a lot of analysis around the changes in demographics and the decreased birth rate, and I'm just curious from a, just out of research curiosity, what that research says as far as new families coming into the community. Anecdotally, me and a lot of my peers are like, oh, I just moved, and or I left and I just came back. And so I'm just curious how those numbers play into it. And that also speaks to how do we continue to be a desirable district for people to come to. I know when we were looking for a place to live, it's where can we afford and where's there a half-decent school district? And Gig Harbor and Tahoma school districts were the top 2 on my list. And here I am. So really curious on the demographics and the transitory nature of moving in and moving out and how that plays into that piece of it. And then the other thing I was curious, just how the budget's impacted by lost learning hours and seat time. I don't understand that very well. I know that's a thing. So I'm just wondering potentially if next week or through an alternate venue, if we get some information on how our budget's impacted by lost learning time and seat time.
Excellent. We will get that to you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call for a second time. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the proposed budget for 25-26? And one more time, is there anyone who would like to speak on the 25-26 preliminary proposed budget? Okay. Hearing no further public comment, I now declare the public hearing closed. Item 6 this evening is community comments on agenda items. We don't have anyone signed up to speak on our agenda items. Of course, these are items that we take action on. There will be a time provided later in the meeting for those wishing to speak on non-agenda items. Moving on to item 7, we have our consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Chuck and seconded by Lori to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried and the consent agenda is approved. We do have one missing, but it's the 4 of it. Thank you for pointing that out. Item 8, discussion action items. The first item is the approval of the second reading of the policy 3210, non-discrimination. As a reminder, second reading is the official approval of a policy. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion? Oh, did you have one?
Yeah. I apologize. I can't remember. It was one, oh, she's already in position. Was Julie going to talk about this one or the next one? Okay. Then I'll.
3241.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Sorry, I couldn't remember which one. That was my only question.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policy 3210 on non-discrimination?
I move that we approve policy 3210 on non-discrimination.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Lori and seconded by Jennifer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried, and the second reading of policy 3210, non-discrimination, has been approved. Item 8.2 is the approval of the second read of policy 3241 on student discipline. So now we have Julie Schultz-Bartlett, our Deputy Chief of Schools, to walk the board through the required updates so that we stay in line with state recommendations and continue to follow best practices.
Yes, thank you, President Wimberly, Superintendent Barr, Board of Directors. Thank you. You asked me to talk to you about why we're recommending the policy update for 3241, which is our student discipline. And in June, the legislature passed a change to the student discipline code, to the WAC, that guides what we need to be abiding by for student discipline. They updated that on June 10th, and it went into effect 31 days later on July 11th. And as you know, we are required to be compliant with this state WAC guidelines. So that's why we are recommending that we update that policy so it reflects the newest, most current rules that are in order for the schools to follow for student discipline. I understand there were some questions around what those changes were, particularly because the document is like 6 pages long and it had so many red lines and there were paragraphs that were omitted and then added back in different places. So I wanted to give you a quick update about what ultimately those changes were. So the first thing that was clarified were the difference between corrective action and discipline. Corrective action is based in the classroom. So it's actions that teachers take to create a safe and equitable learning environment, which might involve asking students to remove themselves from the learning activity and then re-enter at a later time. This rule change made that possible again and not be considered suspensions or student discipline. So teachers were enabled again through this rule change. This was something that was in effect years ago and went out with a former set of rules and is back, where teachers are able to remove a student from the learning activity maybe have them sit at a different desk, change their seating, maybe work with a counselor or an aide, and then rejoin the learning activity, and that's not considered an exclusion from class learning. It's returning to a time where teachers were able to make those discretionary changes. One addition that was added to the rule that didn't exist back in the 2018 version, teachers are now required to contact home if they make that decision. So if they exclude students from learning for a brief amount of time for corrective action, they need to contact home either through a phone call or through an email. Other updates, the change from emergency expulsion was changed to emergency removal. That's something that PSD put into effect last year, and that was codified this year. Other changes, I think, Jennifer, you had asked about the amount of parent communication that is taking place. The change in the policy requires us to communicate to families in the language that they are most commonly speaking at home. So that's both for teachers around corrective action as well as the school district or administrators. The staff rules around exclusion, so this would be if administrators suspend students and we remove them from school, that is also a requirement that we contact home during that process. So that's already something that our principals and our administrators are doing. If there's a discipline issue where we're going to suspend a student, we're required to contact home during the initial hearing, so while we're meeting with the student. And throughout the entire change in the policy, it's asking us to always look at things through a lens of fairness for our students. So looking at what the contributing factors were to their behavior. That's something that's also now required in that law, so that there's not just if there's a violation that everyone must have this exact same consequence, but to really require our schools and our teachers and our discipline codes to look at what the extenuating factors were that were contributing to that action. And the last part was that it asked for all of us to adopt a data forward approach. So committees of teachers, administrators are encouraged to always look at the data that's guiding what those exclusionary practices might be. So we would look at what are the situations that are happening in the schools and what would data tell us is correcting those behaviors. So if restorative practices are correcting the behavior, then we would maintain that. If something else needs to change, we would change that. That was it. Those are the main changes. There's a lot of words in there for those changes, but.
So I'm the one that asked to have this pulled so we could discuss it further. Last year I had the opportunity to travel the state and I talked to many teachers all over the state. Their number one issue wasn't the school board, wasn't their superintendent, wasn't their pay. It was student discipline. And number two was regulations and policies in the classroom that made it too onerous to teach. So this has another regulation and policy added to it. But one of the things that when I read this new student discipline, I don't see anything, the word corrective action talks about we can pull them out, we can do that, emergency expulsion, stuff like that. But I don't actually see any words in here. I'm looking for the word corrective action. I appreciate the fact that teachers now have the discretion to do that. I heard plenty of horror stories last year where students are throwing chairs and acting up. Teacher had nothing they could do. They had to remove the entire classroom and leave that student in there, and that disrupted the education for the rest of those kids. I also heard, and I don't know if this is true, that if a teacher corrects and has a student step out of the room, that the school district had to bring, or the school had to bring a staff member in to sit with that kid, taken away from their day to come sit with the kid, so that they didn't lose education. I just can't imagine if they're sitting in the hallway or being disruptive, that's doing anything positive. Is that still a case where they have to do that, where a staff member has to sit with a student in the hallway?
So students need to be supervised at all times. So if a student is in the hallway, they need to be supervised. So if that's what is determined by the team that's working with that student as being the most effective for the student, then in those cases, there would be somebody with that student. We can't have students be unsupervised in the hallways either.
Yeah, I don't
so.
disagree with that. What I'm saying is that it would pull a staff member that's supposed to be doing a job, doing something else, come sit with that disruptive student in the hallway, rather than call mom or dad and come and get them, like in the old days. I was just curious about that. It says that school principals will ensure teachers and other school personnel receive adequate support to effectively implement a continuum of identified best practices, and one of which is focus on prevention to reduce the use of exclusionary practices. Does that mean focus on restorative instead? There's no mention anywhere in here at all about restorative practices. And then it says, allow the exercise of professional judgment and skill sets, okay? I like that, but it's not very clear on its face what that means. So will teachers be allowed to use their professional judgment to remove the student from class? And if so, they have to be trained on that. Can you expand on how each individual teacher will be able to exercise their professional judgment and skill set to remove a student from class?
So the way that gets determined is in each building, they'll have protocols that they will use in case there's a situation in a classroom where a teacher needs support. And it looks different in every classroom because kindergarten is different than high school. It looks different in every building because we have different ranges of supports and we have different programs in every building. So typically what would happen if a teacher needs additional support is they would contact the front office, and there would be a protocol that the front office would follow to reach either the social worker, the community and schools person, the principal, and people would go to the classroom to provide that support. As far as how we train our teachers around using their professional discretion, the teachers are empowered to be able to make choices in their classroom around what's going to ensure that they are able to educate all the students in the class. There's going to be times that they're going to need extra help. There's going to be time that some students will become dysregulated and they need to step out of the classroom, and we would provide an adult that would supervise them. And we are working with our MTSS teams, we're working with our union partners to continue to expand our teachers' knowledge around how to de-escalate and how to attend to students who may become dysregulated. Your question around whether or not we're in like the old school way where you can remove a student from the classroom at your discretion. In this case, the protocols that would be in place in the building would be seeking to keep students in the classroom as much as possible and to intervene. But if teachers need help with a particular student, there are protocols in all of our buildings to receive that help.
So to expand on that, I mean, this is a policy, references RCW and WACS, and I printed all those RCWs out and all of them, I read them all. But I don't see a Peninsula School District procedure attached to the back of the policy. And we just had a little bit of a snafu not too long ago about having a policy without an appropriate procedure. Where would we find a procedure that is going to be implemented in order to follow this policy? And does the Peninsula School Board have the right to modify this policy to fit the Peninsula School District?
Modifying
like we do with a WASDA policy.
This is a WASDA policy, but modifying this policy would not be recommended because this is a policy that's directly aligned to the law. So we wouldn't necessarily modify the policy, but modifying the procedures. We have been modifying the procedures that we already have in place to meet the new law requirements for when the school district opens up on September 3rd. We've already updated the rights and responsibilities, so all of our staff members and students and families will be able to see the new laws and the new protocols when they sign those procedures. We've updated the behavior matrix to reflect the requirements of the new law, and that's available also on the rights and responsibilities. And the procedures have been updated to show the different rights that parents have for communication, as well as the protocols for appeals.
I guess for me, one of the things that a lot of our policies in the school district have procedure attached to them. And there isn't a procedure attached this, that I could go online, or a parent or a community member could go online and say, here's our student discipline policy, where's the procedure? And I don't see that on here, and I'm just saying, is that something that, if we actually have a procedure for this?
We do have a procedure. They're online, and
I mean, there's all these, I'm just saying, there's all these, substance abuse and all this, but those are not necessarily a procedure on student discipline. So,
There is a 3241 team,
yeah.
but you're saying you're working on the update, so do you
Yes.
know
So when the updates will be available by Monday, as soon as this policy is approved. So the procedures match the old policy right now because they need to go together. And
Right.
the old policy had very different procedures attached to it because it had different legal requirements for the way we operated. But with the new updated laws, once we update the policy, the new procedures will go with that.
okay, so, thank you. So that's what I'm just saying, is that at some point we can put the revised 3241P on this, so we can see it. Thanks. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. I think for, it seems like sometimes when, at least in my experience the past couple of years, it's hasn't necessarily been the actual policy or procedure. It's been, we have conflicting information in different places, like on a school website and then on a district website. And I know chasing all those down can be challenging. So do you have a plan for that as well? Because this is, I mean, if the procedure is kind of a big change, I just get a little nervous about how many places does the old one live that might be confused and conflated.
So the main way that we're addressing that is through the updated rights and responsibilities. So the rights and responsibilities have been updated. We've worked collectively, all the administrators have worked on making sure that we get all of our procedures aligned. And that has been adopted now by all of our buildings as just one rights and responsibilities for every building in the district. And that has a behavior matrix, which talks about the discipline, the type of discipline that exists, the possible consequences across all of our schools. The procedures are also updated and outlined in that rights and responsibilities. So a family member could just open the rights and responsibilities and see a preview of everything that has to do with the student in their building. And then as far as where the policy and procedures live, they always live on that board page with our policies and procedures. And once this is passed, a new one will be updated and uploaded. And then the old links will be essentially broken. So if there's any links buried in somebody's document, that old link will break. And then they would go back to the procedure page, the board policy page, and they'd be able to find both of these updated.
Jennifer, I think you bring up a good point, though, that's why this was timely for us to pass this, because then parents will be previewing and signing off at the beginning of the school for all of the new policies, procedures, and the current ones that have already been adopted. But it is important that parents know that the most current information will be coming out in the handbook in, what is it, 14-something days. I saw that ticker on our board, on our page, so.
Yep, and
Yeah.
all of our teachers are going to have training for those new policies and procedures. They'll also be asked to sign and commit to the rights and responsibilities, and which also contains all of the updated procedures that we've had since the beginning of last school year. So this is the final one because that law changed in June that we need to make sure we take care of before the new year starts, so we don't change mid-year.
Yeah, for me, I just wanted to make sure that it had teeth to it, because I heard so much last year about teachers felt their hands were tied around student discipline, and I just wanted to make sure that that's not going to be a case in the future.
Do you feel confident?
It does address the concern. One of the concerns with the way that the former rules were written is that when you were a teacher and you removed somebody from class for more than 10 minutes-ish, it would be considered a suspension. And so there was this area where people felt like they couldn't say, I need this student to come out of class. This rule change says that we need to respect teachers' decisions and understand that if there are times that they need to remove someone from class, we need to accept that and support them. But then it also requires that that teacher contact the parent immediately and talk about what happened. And then there's protocols in the buildings to bring that student back to class as soon as possible. Because the ultimate goal is that the student remains regulated, but that we don't get into a system where teachers are feeling like they can't teach in their classroom.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the second read of policy 3241, student discipline?
I'll move to approve 3241.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Lori to approve policy 3241. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried, and policy 3241 has been approved. Item 8.3 is the approval of the second reading of policy 4040, public access to district records. Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
I just want to make, like, I went through this a couple of times, and is it literally just like changing some capitalization and stuff? Yeah, okay. Like, I could not find anything different other than that. Okay. Just get them done. Okay, thanks.
District is capital.
Yes. Big D. All right.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion to approve the second read of policy 4040, public access to district
moved.
records? David, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by David and seconded by Chuck to approve policy 4040. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. The second read of policy 4040, public access to district records, has been approved. Item 8.4 is the approval of the second read of policy 4130, Title I, Part A, parent and family engagement. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Okay, is there a motion to approve the second read of policy 4130, Title I, Part A, parent and family engagement?
I'm sorry, I wasn't quick enough.
Oh, I thought you said, sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I closed my screen.
I'm gonna
And
pull
my
up the
question was, I was wondering, and sorry, I keep looking at you, Ashley, because I feel like this is kind of tied to budget with title. Like, how does this work when sometimes it seems like we have this little dance of schools falling in and out of qualifying? And it seems like this, you know, it is quite a big of a kind of a ramp up to investment. Can you just? Yeah. I can hear you.
And then just to that end, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Any other discussion prior to the vote? Okay, is there a motion to approve the second read of policy 4130, Title I, Part A, Parent and Family Engagement?
I'll move to approve the second read of policy 4130, parent and family engagement, Title I.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Lori and seconded by Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried, and the second read of policy 4130, Title I, Part A, Parent and Family Engagement has been approved. Item 8.5 is the approval of the board and superintendent goals for 25-26. So I know we're running kind of late here, but I just wanted to touch base on this a little bit before we head to the vote. We met in retreat this summer. It's something we do every year to visit progress towards our strategic plan, look at our goals. We set goals for ourselves, we review our goals, and review the superintendent's goals over the year. And feel free to jump in, but I think it's fair to say that where we landed was an intense hyper-focus on academic achievement and student outcomes. We recognize that that is why we exist as a school system. And so you will see in our goals, the number one priority will be focusing on student outcomes. And I think you as public will see a shift in some of our board meeting structure and what we discuss and what we review. We're going to be really focused on progress monitoring towards our goals. So we have set a large goal for the district to focus particularly on literacy, like we have done over the last year. This year, we're going to be adding in a focus on mathematics, and we will be spending significantly more time monitoring progress towards those goals. So of course, that involves assessment data, but there's other more anecdotal data that we'll be looking at. And then of course, the superintendent's goals are related to that as well. And so she will be focused with her team on how we move the needle for kids and how we really engage those strategic plan initiatives of being the best district in the state. So our goals significantly reside in that area, ours and the superintendent's. It's time to start revisiting the strategic plan. We're coming up on that 2026 deadline, and so looking at how we refine those. Community engagement and outreach is something that we are focused on. We are listening to our community. We know that this format feels very one-sided and one way, and we would like to provide additional opportunities to engage in more of a dialogue between the community and the board. So starting this fall, we're going to be having some more study sessions versus 2 board meetings. So you'll see a little bit of a change in format. And at 4 of those study sessions, we plan on having a town hall forum prior to the board meeting or prior to the study session, in which we can engage on concerns and comments, questions from our community and have some more of a back and forth discussion. And so the superintendent will be there. We will be kind of hosting them around the district at our different middle schools. So those principals, different administrators will be there. So we really are looking forward to being able to have some more dialogue with all of you. So those are the goals that we're focused on. Superintendent will be focused on the same things. Building accountability and implementation of all of these initiatives will be something that we're looking at as well. But we're excited to launch into this next school year. And clearly, our budget is a concern. We know that we have to be funded in order to meet these goals, but our reason for being is to provide our students with an education and have them be college and career ready. And I want to applaud you and your team for doing so much with decreased funds year over year. We are still looked at in the state as a beacon of outstanding achievement, cool programs. We're seeing people choice transfer into our district because of the things that you're doing, that you're all doing. That helps bottom line, helps us be a place that people want to live. And we are incredibly proud of that. And now we're focused on the upcoming year. So is there anything that the rest of you would like to add about board goals?
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback on what you said. I'm real proud of the work that the school board and the school district has done, the executive team, the teachers, all the staff. And that this school board does have lofty goals. When we put our strategic plan together 4 years ago, we sort of started with, where do we want to see the school district in 5 years? And, having strong student outcomes and academic achievement as your center, compass, I think is the right way to be. And I was in a community event not too long ago, and someone in the audience made a comment that our academic outcomes, our goals are too high. They're too unrealistic. And specifically, for us to say that we want 100% of our third graders to be able to read when they get out of third grade is unrealistic. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I'd love to have, don't do this. I would have liked to have everybody in the room stand up and pretend they're a third grade student parent and say, then, how many of you would be okay with your kid not being able to read? Please sit down. I doubt anyone would have done that. In academic, research has clearly shown that if third graders can't read, they're less likely to graduate. And students that don't graduate high school are more inclined to be incarcerated at some point. So I'm proud that we have high academic achievement and student outcomes. And I'm not going to back down. I will push back against anyone that says we shouldn't have high academic outcome standards. So I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of the board. I'm proud of this school district. Thanks.
Any other discussion prior to the vote on approving the board and superintendent goals for 25-26? Is there a motion to approve board and superintendent goals?
I move to approve superintendent and board goals.
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by David to approve the board and superintendent goals for 25-26. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. The goals are approved. Okay, we will now move on to item 9, comments from the community on non-agenda items. We do have several people signed up to speak this evening. So I will call you to the podium. When you come to the podium, please state your first and last name. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. There will be a timer for you here. So if for some reason you are unable to complete your speaking within the 3 minutes, please know that you can also email to the board and we can receive your comment that way. So first up this evening, I hope you are Jen Beechler.
Yes, Jennifer Beechler.
Okay.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is my family's 5th year at Discovery Elementary. I volunteer there a lot. And recently I learned that Lifewise, a Christian religious program that operates under release time for religious instruction laws, has started a program at Discovery. None of us know about this. Whereby they pull out students during the lunch and recess break and walk them over to a local church for instruction. But in other schools, they'll be taking a red bus to take them to another church. So again, just learning about this program, and I am not at all opposed to religious education or parents taking their children out of school for any religious reason. I do have a personal objection to any outside organization that would take a group of students out of school during the middle of the school day. And tonight, I think you're going to hear a lot of us about this particular program, Lifewise, and our concerns about it. My few concerns that I'll share tonight is one, that it's my understanding Lifewise has in the past caused distractions and disruptions in the classroom. Lifewise, again, my understanding, they have had a history of incentivizing students to recruit other students by passing out flyers, wearing red t-shirts, and encouraging them to sign up new students and giving them incentives to do so, and that this has been very distracting in other schools. It's also my understanding that in the state of Washington at Emerson Elementary in Everett, the school actually had that program with Lifewise in place, and they had to go to that program and restrict them from giving out any materials for the students to take back to their classrooms. They are no longer allowed to give anything to the students to take back. Second concern, I'm concerned that Lifewise this program will put too much pressure on our front desk staff at Discovery. They have a lot to manage. They are down to a skeletal staff, and during the lunch hour is a particularly difficult time to manage a big group of students leaving during the day, and verifying things like, where is this one particular child, or did this parent want that child to go to this program in this particular day? We are a small school with smaller staff, support staff. Third, I believe this program sets a dangerous precedent. By allowing this program to exist, any potential other religious organization, even controversial ones, could operate and pull students out during the day as well. Background checks at Lifewise have also been a problem in the past. So I ask that this school district hit the pause button, which you can do. You do not have to allow this program to be in this district. There is also a policy that can be written and put in place to protect our students.
Speech
and our
that's your
schools.
time.
Thank
Please
you.
submit the rest in writing. Thank you. Next, we have Shannon Olson.
Good evening, PSD School Board and Superintendent Barr. I appreciate being given the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Shannon Olson. I'm a Peninsula School District graduate, employee of Communities and Schools of Peninsula, taxpayer, and registered voter. Tonight, I'm speaking to you, the board, solely as a Discovery Elementary parent. I stand before you this evening to ask that you stop Lifewise Academy from launching their program in our district. For those who are not aware of this program, they seek to provide religious instruction during school hours with a lunch recess pullout option that parents can give permission for their children to attend. First through third grade students will be checked out from school by a Lifewise volunteer, walked across the street to Chapel Hill for their instruction period, and then return to school. Not only does this blur the lines between the separation of church and state and public education setting, this will create disruption during the school day for both students and school staff. The children who are pulled for this special program will miss valuable social emotional learning time with their peers at recess and lunch. The children who are not pulled to attend the program will be left feeling they are missing out, creating an unnecessary division among students. If there is a district-wide school improvement plan to increase sense of belonging, why would you allow an outside pull-out program in our schools that will inevitably divide students? I have been overjoyed with how wonderful the Discovery experience has been for my family the last 2 years. Staff at Discovery are warm, loving, and create an inclusive environment on campus for everyone. Lifewise Academy will undermine these efforts and make it challenging to be unified as a one Discovery family. I personally believe this is the goal of Lifewise Academy, to implement their program on elementary campuses in a way that indoctrinates the impressionable minds of our youngest students. Let's call it what it is, Christian nationalism and the attack on the public education system as a whole. I ask that you as a board at a minimum work with Lifewise Academy to move their program to a before or after school club. There are various before and after school clubs that meet in our district, including 3 religious clubs next door at Gig Harbor High School. No organization, religiously based or otherwise, should be allowed to pull students during school hours or disrupt the school day. For those in the audience listening and families at home watching the live stream, Lifewise hasn't just targeted Discovery Elementary. They plan to expand to Pioneer and Purdy Elementary as well. They also are working their way into South Kitsap schools. Please, PSD Board and Superintendent Barr, do not let Lifewise into our schools. Please continue to be inclusive to all students in this district. You have the power to stop this program like many other districts have successfully across the nation. Please do right by our kids.
Okay, thank you. Next is Kate Kelly.
Kate Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Hi, my name is Kate Kelly. I'm a parent of a current student at Discovery Elementary School, and I'm here to express my concern about the Lifewise program being offered in our schools that was seemingly approved without discussion or input from our community. While I respect families' rights to religious expression and education, I also believe strongly that acceptance of this program directly conflicts with the core principles of our school district, including promotion of inclusivity and academic focus. While Zurich v. Clausen established released time-based religious instruction under certain conditions, in the context of public education, the line between personal religious choice and government endorsement becomes blurred. Even if Lifewise is off campus and privately funded, it being scheduled during school hours provides an implicit endorsement from the school. Several other school districts around the country have denied access to this program based on the tremendous disruption and burden that would be caused, and I strongly encourage the board to consider doing the same. Should this program be allowed to move forward, it is imperative that PSD ensure the core rules of the originating case law are strictly followed. Use of any advertising, promotional materials, or other forms of recruitment, including candy and toys, must not be permitted. Use of these tactics has been openly shared within the Lifewise program as a means of encouraging kids to increase enrollment. Children should not be used for recruitment, and it is PSD's responsibility to protect both the participating and non-participating students. In addition, PSD must ensure that all participants are following the strict guidelines for entry and exit from the school, including a parent or guardian present for the release and re-entry. A delegated official from the Lifewise organization who has not undergone a formal background check from PSD should not be given these privileges. Again, it is PSD's responsibility to protect our students. I have also heard that Lifewise is planning to be present at Meet the Teacher event next week, and I strongly encourage you to prevent this from happening. This is a school event and directly violates that originating case law. Finally, I urge you to consider that this is not a grassroots effort to fill a need for quality religious education in this community. That exists within Gig Harbor. This is a national organization pushing a national agenda that has targeted our schools. Please continue to evaluate what best serves this community in keeping with the core values of our district and public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Nicole Kruger.
My name is Nicole Kruger, and as a proud mom of 4 and a member of our Discovery Elementary VPO board, and appreciate our focus on academics as highlighted by you all earlier. I'm eager to have the opportunity to share my opinion regarding the Lifewise Academy program coming to PSD. To note for context, my family of 6 moved here from Texas early this year, where some of you may know is currently posting the 10 Commandments in classrooms, public classrooms. This is why something that may seem so small is so important. It is a seed that can sprout and grow into something much larger and much more dangerous if we're not careful. First and foremost, it's incredibly disheartening to see that this is a program being integrated in our schools without allowing the opportunity for parents to voice concerns prior. Secondly, I do urge you to reconsider allowing Lifewise Academy or any other religious instruction to take away from our community solidarity. Not only does this remove students from their studies, but this creates divide within our classrooms. If this program is the only RTRI program that is making a stop at school, it appears to our community that our district is endorsing a single religion and creates an opportunity for hostility to rise amongst our community that is made up of people who practice other religions or none at all. Is this the message that our educational students should hear? Is this the message our educational board intends to share to our students or faculty? Our district is public, and that does mean that anyone with any beliefs can attend. Is it okay that our students as young as 5 years old will come back from their RTRI time, depending on their lesson for the day, and we're just told that their peers will go to hell because their family, siblings, or future siblings themselves, LGBTQ, or because they don't practice Christianity themselves? How would the school, or in reality their teachers, respond to such? This creates a potential for much more distraction than benefit. It's incredibly alarming to hear that students will be encouraged to recruit their fellow peers through various tactics. Utilizing children for recruitment is quite frankly disturbing, and we should be doing our due diligence as adults and leaders of this community to ensure the safety of all students. If a program needs promotion through young, vulnerable children, shouldn't that be a cause for alarm? If parents want their children to participate in this, they are absolutely free to, and I encourage it to be done outside of school hours. It should not be at the expense of instructional time for any student participating in this program. If this is a program that's going to be allowed, I propose the following parameters be set in place. Set all instructional time as core classes, require students to physically be signed out or in by their independent parent or guardian every occurrence of going off of campus, no different of that than if they had an appointment during the day. Limit the communication, such as flyers, toys, candy, or other recruitment means, so that it can come back to campus. And lastly, ensure that students who are signed out during instructional time are responsible for instruction makeup that does not interfere with the students that stayed for said instruction. I urge you to listen to my fellow parents that are speaking today to fully grasp that we're a community that holds value for all students and all religious beliefs equally. Thank you.
Next is Jackie Pinkerton.
Jackie Pinkerton, mom at Discovery Elementary. I won't belabor some of the highlights that some of my other fellow parents have already shared. I am particularly concerned, and what motivated me to come here is the lack of transparency, again, around a decision that was made that there has a significant disconnect between the intent and the impact. And I was really hoping to be assuaded or comforted by the statement at the beginning of today's meeting, but it felt very dismissive and it misses the point. A number of us have submitted inquiries to the superintendent's office over the weekend trying to get more information, and the canned legal response of we're hands off, we're not involved, is severely disconnected from the reality of what we're finding from this program as the material that they're posting online. And I don't know what direction to be mad. Like the lack of information available and what does this actually look like in our schools? What does this actually look like in our district? I can be mad about all the anecdotes that I read online in other states and other communities where the program started and that's been rescinded. But I don't want to be mad at all of the things, because what are we actually doing? If we're hands off, what did Lifewise actually get approval to do? If they met with the superintendent or the district or the school, what did they get permission to do? They shouldn't need permission. If a parent wants to check out their child to do a program, I don't care. You do you. But if there's any communication, collaboration, what's your schedule? Maybe change the schedule. Let's coordinate whatever. There's so many missing details in what are the school and district's boundaries in this thing, and how do we approach it from a community perspective and position and not just relegate it to the individual schools to handle, manage, or implement locally. The superintendent, you are not constitutionally obligated to accommodate, approve, or make this program accessible. It is a legal program. You are not required to make it available. I think there's a fine balance between, again, separating the boundaries between the public education and the biblical education. And I'm especially concerned about this organization that started in 2018 who stands on a principle of their children, their students are missionaries, and our schools are their mission field. That is very scary. And they're targeting our 1st through 3rd graders who are very impressionable. The shenanigans that come out of my child's mouth is a whole thing to have to redirect under normal circumstances. And the published materials and statement of faith available on the Lifewise website, not to mention the obfuscated curriculum and information they don't make available, but has been shared online and has faced litigation because don't share proprietary material. There's a lack of transparency, there's increased liability, and I really expect more from you as our district leadership to lead on this issue, get us the information, and demonstrate, follow the policy with a procedure, put those details in place, and please don't wait until June to rescind approval or to address the issue.
Thank you. Next is Kara Miller.
Hello, my name is Kara Miller. I am a mom to 3 kids in the Peninsula School District, and I am also a Christian. I don't usually start by introducing myself with my religious beliefs, because frequently I am met with anxiety, suspicion, or outright hostility. When I talk with people, it always comes down to the fact that they have suffered religious trauma. While innumerable studies have been done that show the positive effects of religious beliefs, it is less common to discuss what happens when things go wrong. When people are hurt in the name of God, as religious groups push a political ideology as though it were theology. I have immense empathy for those who have suffered and work diligently to ensure whomever is teaching my kids about faith is doing so in a healthy way. I beg the board to please continue limiting Lifewise's presence in schools to the fullest extent of the law. Groups like this, even when given grace and assuming they have the best of intentions, increase conflict between Christians and non-Christians. They encourage impressionable children to evangelize utilizing methods that can actually be defined as harassment, bullying, and coercion. This further leads to an us versus them mentality as opposed to a unified, cohesive school environment where everyone in our community is welcome and wanted. If everyone excuse me, if anyone chooses to have religious beliefs, it should be coming from a place of deep-seated belief and not manipulation or peer pressure. I look forward to an enriching and peaceful year for my children at school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jessica Whitworth.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Jessica Whitworth, and I have 4 kids in the Peninsula School District schools. I'm sure you guys all share my appreciation and admiration for all of the work that our teachers in the district do to serve all students in the district. I'm of course partial to Discovery. You may or may not share my concern about allowing any organization, religious or not, to interrupt the work that our teachers are doing to create the cultures that they do at the school, which is, according to your website, in accordance with the Peninsula School District values, where every child belongs, matters, and will be provided an environment in which to succeed, as well as a learning environment, as well as provide a learning environment outlined in Peninsula School District's goals, where we ensure an inclusive community and culture where everyone is safe, valued, respected, and finds a sense of belonging. I am so grateful that you guys have set those as your goals and your values, because my children get to matriculate through the system, having teachers that really work hard to ensure that those values and goals are seen in the classroom. Currently, the state of Washington has no law specific to release time religious instruction, and as such, each school district or superintendent, as it may or may not choose to allow it. I would respectfully ask the board and Superintendent Barr that if you feel like you must allow it to stay in compliance with federal rulings, that you pause any program seeking to access our students during school hours until you can create a policy for it that current policies do not address, such as restricting the number of days that they are allowed to operate, protecting important, valuable weeks at the beginning and end of school, where this culture is celebrated and built, and where trust is created by the teachers. I would also respectfully ask that the number of days are clearly outlined, and that regulations regarding security and safety of our students be at the forefront of these policies. In closing, I just want to share how strongly opposed I am to any organization that plans to monopolize time paid for by our community's tax dollars to divert to other things that are reasonably accessible during other times of the week. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Finally, we have Matthew Williams.
Hey, good evening. I'm Matthew Williams. I have a daughter who's about to enter into Pioneer School in kindergarten, and very excited about that opportunity. And my family and I live here in Gig Harbor and moved specifically because of the school district and how much we have heard great things about it, and I've seen it here with this board. But as many others before me have said, I do want to reiterate the concern of Lifewise entering into our school districts. There's so many great points that these speakers have said before me that I don't want to belabor again. But in listening to you all speak, you brought up some of the goals that you have for the board and the superintendent. And Lifewise goes against all of those, right? It doesn't help us achieve any of the goals that you set out in writing, in your strategic plan, anything. To remind you, academic excellence. Lifewise is pulling students from learning time. That doesn't help this. A learning environment that's safe and inclusive. Lifewise is not inclusive. It is specifically exclusive. This doesn't help. Community engagement. Again, it's narrowing the scope of who is engaging. It's not helping that. We also talk about some of the academic goals and being lofty, 100% reading by 3rd grade. ELA right now, according to the most recent report card I could find online, 66.2% of students on track. Lifewise does not help us improve that and get to 100%. Math, 53.6% of students on track. Lifewise doesn't help us improve that number. Science, 56.9% of students on track. Lifewise doesn't help increase that proficiency. Furthermore, I've sat in these previous board meetings and I've heard from HIB reviews and what the reviews are recommending for the school board and the district to implement. One thing that HIB reviews from April 22nd of this year found, hateful language has increased, specifically with racist and homophobic slurs growing in our school district. Lifewise, as others have spoken about, has proven to increase anti-LGBTQ support and more bullying instances in the schools that they've operated in. Secondly, student voice. Students want a stronger relationship with staff in and out of classrooms to foster an inclusive school environment. Again, taken from that HIB review in April. Lifewise is pulling students out from these class environments and cultivating a more exclusive environment. This isn't a speech to try to indict any performance metrics or any of the goals this district has established. I think this is a great district. I want us to stay focused on the things that matter and not get distracted by these religious organizations that look to divide us. Thank you so much.
Okay, that concludes public comments for the evening. Item 10 on our agenda is our superintendent's report.
All right, we're going on 3 hours. Thank you all. If you need to stand. I would like to reread the first paragraph. We started off with addressing, but I'll be a little bit more specific. We would like to provide more information regarding the recent concerns and even this evening shared about Lifewise Academy. I want to reiterate and be very clear that it is not a Peninsula School District or PSD school board initiated program. The board has not met. I, as a superintendent, have not met with this organization, and it is not affiliated with or endorsed by our district in any way. There is no agreement at this time. Lifewise is a private religious instruction program held off of school property, is our understanding. However, that would be with parent permission and without the use of public funds. I would also, I'm going to switch this a little bit and share some exciting news we are able to share at this time. Peninsula School District has been recognized as a 2025 AWS champion by the Center for Digital Government and the Center for Digital Education. Chris Hagel is instrumental in that work, and it is a national honor. It really highlights how we are using AI in smart, creative ways, like streamlining lesson planning and supporting our staff with customized tools. Even today, I just asked Chris for Chat GPT 5.0, and he graciously said he's working on it already, so I appreciate that. Big thanks to our team for leading the way in using technology to make a difference for students and educators, and this will allow us to meet those lofty goals, the right goals around literacy, mathematics, and science. We have had some great days at our admin retreats the last 2 weeks, filled with connection, thoughtful planning. All of our principals are back, and they're very happy. We do have some new staff at a variety of different schools, and so getting them all together and having a real focus on our goals, our academic goals, was really powerful. Our leadership team that's focused and ready to make the 25-26 school year a strong one for our staff, our students, and families. So we encourage families, you have some time, you have like 2 weeks, so make sure that you make every moment last. Tomorrow, I saw Dan DeZone back there. We welcome our new staff to PSD, so we're looking forward to that. I'm very excited about our Welcome Back Day on August 28th. We will be coming together with all of our staff and our community. Our Gig Harbor Chamber of Commerce has our partnership for learning, and we will have all of our partners there as well. We will be officially kicking off the year, and this year we will be at Gig Harbor High School, so we're mixing it up a little bit. It's always a meaningful moment to unite around our shared goals and set the tone for the year ahead. Fall sports are already going. Yesterday, there was a fantastic sportsmanship conference. Thank you to Wendy and Brittany and all of the staff that put that on. Our students got together across the district and worked together in terms of leadership. So some pretty cool t-shirts and just a foretaste of the things to come. We encourage parents to really look at the Back to School website, as you heard Ashley mention. We have all of the supplies, but there are a few things like backpacks and water bottles. Yeah. Right. Right. But everything else is provided. So that's, and lastly, I want to thank the board for your continued dedication and support. I want to thank my staff for all of the hard work that they have done over the last few months in order to get this going, this new school year going, and all of the staff that work through the summer. Let's not forget our custodial staff, our grounds, our food service. We have a new food service. Aramark is coming on board, so they hired all their new staff, so they've been doing professional development. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes to open the doors when we open the doors to our staff. So very excited about the 25-26 school year and all the things that will occur.
Okay, that takes us to our board discussion and comments. Does anyone feel like going first? Don't all jump.
Oh, you're going to go? I'll do it. I really appreciated the school board retreat that we had recently, where the 5 of us plus one, Creston, spent half a day going over our board goals, superintendent goals, and looking at potentially redoing our strategic plan next year because it's at its 5-year mark. And that's always a lot of fun to work with the board and the superintendent every summer to get ourselves aligned for the next school year. So I enjoyed that. And Jenny was also there with us, and she's always a great addition to the team. I attended, I know it's not a specifically school district, but I went to as did some of the school board members here, and Superintendent Barr, to the Suicide Prevention Coalition fundraiser at Thelma's house. It had to be 150, 200 people there. So, I mean, it's really nice to see the amount of community supporting that effort. And then Chuck and I have the upcoming Audit and Finance Committee retreat coming up with Ashley and our Audit and Finance team pretty soon. So that's it. Thanks.
David.
Okay.
I'll be short and sweet. I just want to kind of continue the conversation a little bit on budget stuff. I have great concerns about the future. And I know we're going to talk about it next week, but we've also seen the decline in our reserve, our carry forward numbers continue to go down. And that is what's going to carry us when the state does it again to us and can't pay. Our teachers need to be paid, our staff need to be paid. And so we've got to be thinking ahead. That's all I'm gonna say.
Keep it on this end of the table. Budget, Ashley, Logan, that was a fantastic presentation. It was long, but honestly, I mean, every word mattered, every word counted, and I can't thank you both enough for the amount of time you clearly put into that. And Logan, you're absolutely incredible. I just got to say, huge hat tip. I mean, I don't know too many people like professionals that could have presented to the degree of detail that you did. That was really impressive and informative as always. And if ever, it's a dismal outlook for everyone, but I feel like we are so lucky and fortunate in this district to have Ashley at the helm, that I feel like we are probably in one of the strongest and best positions in the state. And that is a testament to your forward thinking and to your leadership, and you have an awesome team with you. So thank you very much for that work. I will just make one comment about the Lifewise explosion. I mean, we're all up here on our heels right now because all of this, from what we can tell, has originated from social media posts, and we're all trying to figure this out together. I think I'm taking it kind of personally that there's been a deliberate obfuscation and guilt by association by this organization to imply that there was anything going on up here. None of us know anything about this. I mean, I've learned more, true or not, I don't know, listening tonight, because we have literally never heard of any of this. And I guess I'm just really demoralized because this morning was amazing. I went to go to send both my kids off to their orientations for their new schools, Big Moves. Harbor Ridge had their orientation, and it was so great to see all these little sixth graders still looking like elementary school kids, a lot of them showing up at the middle school, but they had, the upperclassmen there greeting them at the door, and it was so fun. And then other daughters starting doing Seahawk 101, again with the cheerleaders there, and it's just such a really exciting time. And then, staying focused on that and the start of school, and I have the full faith and confidence in our protocols in our district and our understanding of what our rules and responsibilities are to children, to sign out, to safety, that we will sort this out. But we have to take a breath and first of all, even understand what's happening. So school's going to start. It's going to be fantastic. Let's get there. And we're going to have a great year. We are going to have a great year. I mean, if anything, the looks on the faces of the kids I saw at these two schools this morning, I have no reason to think that that's not going to be the case at all of our other schools as they start to have their events. So let's do it.
I apologize. You started it. I was not going to comment, but I appreciate all of you who came and spoke. I apologize. I feel like I've had a frustrated expression all for the last hour and a half, and it's because I didn't know anything about this organization until about 45 minutes before the meeting. And so it was a hard last couple of hours, and I don't know what's happening, but I will look into it. So, but Jennifer really said all that needed to be said, and we do certainly have the safety and the obvious responsibility to educate children during the hours the schools are open on the forefront of our minds and our goals. So, thank you for coming. And also want to thank Logan. That was unbelievable, and Ashley, as always. But thank you for that, and did just a fantastic job. Also, you mentioned this briefly, but as we do approach the start of school and, of course, the start of the fall sports season, I wanted to take just another minute because I think this is so important, this issue. We have just really had a continued focus on sportsmanship in the Peninsula School District, and it's so important that it just can't be talked about enough, I don't think. And I asked Wendy earlier if she would be willing to just give a couple of highlights from yesterday's event, just what it was, and anything you'd like to share, just quickly.
thank you all for your comments. I won't repeat what was said, but I appreciate addressing concerns this evening. I did want to talk just briefly about our work and the cadence of a school board year, and our association, WASDA, Washington State School Directors Association. Part of what we do is drive our legislative process through an association. So we, as school boards across the state, develop priorities and legislative priorities and permanent positions. And I don't know that we've paid enough attention to that over the years. As an association, every year, as you know, when we go to the legislature, it's always for money. That's going to be our priority driving every single time. And we kind of know the realities of that. And so we, as a board, are now kind of engaged in reminding our association that there are other things that we need to be focused on, which align with our strategic goals, academics specifically. So I serve on the resolutions committee, and we've put forth a couple of permanent positions and legislative priorities this year. Some of them, the committee will give either a do pass or a do not pass recommendation, and the entire board or body votes on it in September. Occasionally, they'll give us a do not pass with please make a few tweaks, and so we did that this year. Unfortunately, the amendment window that just happened last week was at the deadline of the amendment cycle, and we didn't have a quorum. But I am really pleased to say that all of the members who were there were incredibly supportive of the work that the Peninsula School District is doing. And if we took a straw poll, would have given us a do pass recommendation. And so we'll have people get up and speak at the General Assembly next month to pass some of these priorities that we have that are related to academic achievement, some also alternate routes to certification, so supporting our military-connected spouse teachers and those who have certificates so they can come into our district and work and serve our students. So I think we'll have a focus on that this year. Legislative Assembly is the 18th of September, I think, so are the two, it's just only by Zoom this year, so I think the two of you will be attending that and voting on those priorities. And that kind of drives our focus in January for the legislative cycle. So that's just something to keep in mind. Just a couple of things. The mayor of our sister city in Croatia will be visiting on September 22nd and 23rd. So he'll be with Superintendent Barr and touring Harbor Ridge on the morning of the 23rd. We have a peace poll there. We've also, which has writing in 8 different languages. Croatian is one of them. They're touring that school specifically because over the past couple of years, we've done some partnerships between their middle school and Harbor Ridge. So it's going to be kind of exciting for him to see that. And we're excited to welcome them here. Just want to touch base on Airport Day. It was fantastic. So our team, specifically Kelsey and Ashley, did a marvelous team of putting together 5 different stations of STEM activities for kids. But the performance drone team was there. I highly encourage everyone to go onto our website and check out the performance drone page. The things that they're already doing are just phenomenal, so cool. And I don't know if I don't want to give away. Can you make an announcement? Yeah. Okay. May I? Please do.
All right, September 18th, there will be a drone show at Gig Harbor Lower Field. Is that what we're calling it? Gig Harbor High School Lower Field, right below Pioneer. And it will be their first time ever. I'm their first client. So the students interviewed me, and I was very hard on them because I told them what I wanted to see, what I did not want to see. And they were very professional. There is I'm going to have to look at, there's a pilot who actually flies the 300 drones. We have 300 drones on site. And then there's a programmer. What's the name of the? It's
animator.
Yes, show designer, programmer that does all of the computer program. And they are using the most up-to-date software that is used for commercial performance drone teams. So we're really looking forward to it. But it will be first come, first serve. It will be on Pioneer site. And I think the time is 8:30, half an hour after sunset. So it will probably be standing room only. Please bring your chairs. We will not have chairs available. And we'll be working with the city, police, and JROTC for traffic. And it is a Thursday evening. kind of intentionally, we wanted a soft opening because we will be the second school district team in the nation to have a performance drone team. So it's pretty exciting, but we didn't want to like shine the light on and invite every single person in the Northwest. But we're really excited. And it is a foretaste of things to come. They are ready to have other clients that are paying clients. I'm not a paying client. We already paid. We already paid for them. So pretty exciting. We've been a little hush-hush about it. If it rains, however, on September 18th, then we would do it on that Friday, maybe. We'll have to see. So it is weather dependent. So it may be limited. You're back to school. But we just wanted to make that announcement. There will be information that will be coming out formally, but you heard it here, so pretty excited.
Thank you. Special thank you to Brittany for putting this together tonight. Thank you for keeping us on track. Got the script, got everything worked smoothly. So we do have one more board meeting before school starts, so this is not the official last summer meeting. Next Tuesday, August 26th at 6:00 p.m. We will have a board meeting here at Swiftwater Elementary specifically to hopefully pass the budget that we heard this evening. So with that, at 9:16.